I am going to call this regular council meeting of Monday, August 15th to order. It is just a little bit after 6 o'clock. I apologize for the delay. I was just up in council chambers. Please know that this council meeting is being recorded. It is being recorded via the Zoom platform. Everyone in council chambers, you can see your computer screen there, the large computer screen, and most of you are visible on that computer screen. So that will show up on the Zoom recording. The Zoom recording will be posted on the city's Facebook, on their website, so this can be viewed at a later date. So just want to let everyone know that this is being recorded and can be reviewed again. So I'm calling the meeting to order. There are a couple late items that we want to add. So item number 4.4 is seniors residential tax options. And 4.5 is Butler Park. CAO McClure, are you satisfied with that as per our discussion? You're good? Okay, thumbs up. Thank you. Okay, the first item of business tonight is the adoption of the minutes. We have 3 sets of minutes before us: the Governance and Operations Committee meeting of July 18th, 2022, the public hearing of July 18th, 2022, and the regular council meeting of July 18th, 2022. The motion was, or the recommendation was omitted, so I'll just read that the 3 sets of minutes is listed. The GOC, the public hearing, and the regular council meeting, all of July 18th, 2022, be adopted as circulated. Do I have someone to make that motion?
Moved.
Councillor Butler, thank you. Do I have someone to second that motion? Councillor Dobie, thank you. Is there any errors or omissions in the minutes that anyone from council wishes to bring forward? Seeing none, all in favor? Any against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, so I just want to explain to everyone how this is going to work tonight. We have 17 people on the Zoom platform. We have probably equally that amount upstairs in council chambers. The next part of the meeting is going to be a delegation by BC Housing. They are going to give a presentation. And then we have the public question period. So under the public question period, what I'm going to first do is call people who are anyone in the council chambers, if you would like to address council under public question period. So what that involves is you standing up and coming up to the podium. You're going to give your name and your physical address where you live. Then you have a few minutes to address council. To everyone, this is not a Q&A period. So if you have questions, you can answer them, but you're not gonna get real-time answers. I'm hoping that the delegations will be able to provide some of you the answers, encapsulate most of it within their presentations that are gonna happen tonight. So we're gonna do the room first. And if there are people in the hallway, because it looks like we're pretty close to max capacity now, I just asked if there's people that wanna speak. We might have to swap out the people that are sitting versus the people that are not. We can open the second set of back doors as well, just to create a little bit more space and a bit so that people can see. So there's council chambers, and then there's also the Zoom platform. Once we're finished with council chambers, we'll open it up for the Zoom platform. And I'm literally probably going to have to just go down the list and ask anyone and I'll ask you by name if you want to speak to council. But I do want to say that if you are part of a group, one person from that delegation gets to speak. So just, figure that out with yourselves now on who is going to be the spokesperson for your team, for your group, and then you will have the floor on behalf of your group. We'll go through the attendees. Once the public question period happens, then we go into item number 4, and council will be deliberating and making a decision on the temporary use permit for the shelter. And I'm assuming that's why most of you are here today. And if you choose to just remain on the line or in the room and you just want to, if you just want to listen, that is fine too. There's no pressure for you to speak. The other option is you can go into the chat for those of you who are a little more Zoom friendly. And if you are someone who wishes to speak, just please go into the chat and put your name and say, I'd like to speak, and then I'll have that confirmed. Okay. So at this point, Item number 2.1, delegations, Tyler Baker and Rachel McGecky from BC Housing. I'm sure you are probably going to be sharing a screen. So Rachel and Tyler, thanks for joining us today. We'll let you share your screen and provide your presentation.
Hi, everyone. Can you see the PowerPoint? Great.
Perfect. So I'm going to start off here. Thank you, Mayor and Council. And you guys can hear me, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having us here today.
Okay, everyone in council chambers, can I just let you know that we can hear you if you're speaking? So unless you're going to get muted on that end, if you can please remain silent so that we don't interrupt the speakers, that would be terrific. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I would like to start off the presentation today with a land acknowledgement. So I respectfully acknowledge that my workplace is within the ancestral, traditional, and unceded territory of the Syilx peoples. I'm grateful to live, work, and play within the region, which is home to over 54 First Nations communities and Métis communities. Now for a quick introduction, I'm Rachel McGecky. I'm a supportive housing advisor with BC Housing, and I work directly with Sheila and other nonprofit organizations in the interior region to provide homelessness and supportive housing services. So today we also have Tyler Baker, the Director of Development, and Sheila Adcock, the Manager of CDS, which is the organization that runs Lenina Shelter. So I will pass it off to Tyler to speak on the next few slides.
Thanks, Rachel. So what we're here today for, BC Housing and Career Development Services are requesting an extension to the temporary use permit, or TUP, while we continue to look for a permanent location for the shelter in the community. The temporary use permit will mean that the shelter can continue to offer warm, safe accommodation for people in the community who are experiencing or at risk of homelessness. Previously, the shelter had 10 beds and it has been increased to 18. It's the increase of 8 beds that the temporary use permit covers. So when we talk about housing, all forms of housing in the community are related. So on the left-hand side of this diagram in blue, we are looking at people who are experiencing homelessness, providing shelter services. As we move to the right, there's supportive housing and social housing. BC Housing and the province have funding streams to fund new construction of all of these types of housing. In the middle, BC Housing and the province also provide supplements for market rent housing. And we're also involved on the further right-hand side of this diagram, subsidizing, financing, and supporting affordable market rental housing and affordable ownership. So like I said, all of these are connected. If we don't have enough market rentals, people are pushed off of this continuum and into homelessness, and that's what we're trying to avoid. BC Housing is building a number of units in the region, 148. These are from across the spectrum that I just described, mostly aimed at low-income families. Some are targeted more towards seniors, some affordable housing. The 9 units that we built in Trail so far are for low-income families. Additionally, specifically shelter beds, BC Housing is funding 46 beds immediately in Trail and immediately surrounding in Castlegar, Grand Forks, and Trail. A little bit further, we also have shelter operations in Nelson, in Cranbrook, and in other locations in the interior. So I mentioned at the start of this, we're asking for this temporary use permit while we look for a long-term permanent location for the shelter operations and for supportive housing. BC Housing will work in consultation with city staff to find a new permanent site for this shelter in Trail. This diagram, it just explains briefly how we go about doing that. First of all, we find a site that might be suitable. We do some research looking at it. Physically, will a building fit there that we want? Is it contaminated with environmental problems? Everything, a lot of the background like that. Once we have a site that will work, BC Housing works to identify a funding program. So where's the money going to come from to pay for this? And then we would, throughout all of those steps, we'd be working closely with the city to make sure that all the approvals are in place, identify what changes would need to be made to permit building, and then we would start public consultation. In Trail, you'll remember that this public process happened at the beginning of this top application, and we're going through it again. The last steps in this process are for actually doing the design and construction. So overall, this is a 3-year process at the very least. It can be quite drawn out. Identifying a site, lots of sites don't work, or we have to go out and buy it. We have to find the money for that. All of those things just take time. So that is the reason that we're asking for the 3-year extension at this point, so that we can complete all of this work properly. So understanding homelessness in the region, homelessness is the most immediate, obvious need in any community. And we notice that homelessness is on the rise in communities across the region and across the province, particularly pronounced in some of the smaller and medium-sized cities in the interior that didn't previously have a homelessness problem. Homelessness is an indicator of broader systemic failures and issues, and a deep lack of affordable housing. There's no single reason why a person experiences homelessness. Each person and each community is unique. And people who are experiencing homelessness are not homogeneous. They have had different pathways into homelessness. These can broadly classified into three factors that are described on the screen. Structural factors, including poverty, discrimination, a lack of affordable housing, the impact of colonialization on Indigenous peoples. The second group is individual and relationship factors. These could include traumatic events, family violence and abuse, mental health issues, addiction issues, and other physical and health issues. The third group are systemic failures, barriers for people accessing public systems, transition from the child welfare system, and discharge from publicly funded institutions such as hospitals or the corrections system. BC Housing and the province takes a housing first approach to addressing these issues. Housing first is an evidence-based approach that works, as we've seen in Trail from the operations of the shelter so far. To talk a little bit more about the successes of the successes and the operations of the Lenina shelter, I'll turn it over to Rachel now.
Thanks, Tyler. So on this slide, we really want to get into some of the specifics and the numbers that we are seeing in Trail. And as we know, this is not a unique issue to the community of Trail. Tyler mentioned this is a systemic issue that is facing many, if not all, municipalities within British Columbia, and it's an issue that is not easily solved without collaboration from many other organizations, community partners, and city staff. So at this time, CDS has identified around 45 individuals who are experiencing homelessness within the community. Currently, the shelter provides housing and/or drop-in services to approximately 30 different people. But CDS also provides outreach services to an additional 12 to 15 people in the community who are precariously housed or require additional support. And at this time, as we know, Trail does not have any other shelter support for people in the community. So I will pass the next few slides off to Sheila to speak about some of the specifics of the shelter and outreach services.
Thank you, Rachel and Tyler. So at La Nina Shelter, as Rachel said, we have 18 beds and they're full every night with individual coming to access a place to sleep and be safe in the community. The need outweighs the capacity at the current shelter. We are at capacity each night. It's different during the daytime. We have approximately 30 guests coming and going during the day, coming by for breakfast, lunch, dinner. They may be sleeping on somebody's couch. They may be camping up in the bush. Some of them have just come to town and we assist them with a meal and coming in and then heading out to wherever they need to go, giving them bus tickets, those types of things. We provide laundry, personal hygiene, there's showers available. They've been really highly sought after during this extended heat wave we've had, where lots of people are coming in to get cool showers, get cooled down inside and get out of the heat. In the winter, we provide winter clothing, boots. We consistently giving out shoes and clothing. We run the local thrift store and a lot of the donations there are brought straight over to the shelter. So everybody has options of clothing that meets their needs and footwear that fits them properly. And so we provide that on site. On average, we provide about 445 meals each month. So individuals dropping by, breakfast, lunch, dinner, they have snacks before bed. So everybody goes to bed with a full stomach and is able to sleep safely off the streets if they choose. Drop-in services are available during extreme weather. That means extreme heat as well as in the winter when it's extreme cold outside. We have people coming in even long enough, even if they don't want to stay all day, they'll come in long enough to get dry boots, warm clothes, and now they're coming in to get out of the extreme heat that's hitting this area. We also have outreach teams out there. We have four outreach staff that are providing support 7 days a week. They're on the streets. They're responding to, right now I have a list of almost 50 businesses that call us on a regular basis, as well as they're in our walkabout. So the staff every day, twice a day, go out, start up somewhere around 7-Eleven, go down all the alleyways, check out the back doors of the businesses. They clean up needles, clean up any debris that's left around. They do that on a regular basis anyway, as well as responding if businesses call. And like I said, I've got a list of in the last few months of almost 50 business, I think it's 48 businesses that have been calling and that we provide services for. The outreach team will go out and we have paint. We go out and clean up any kind of graffiti that's been left on businesses, and they're busy out building relationships with the local businesses. And we've had a lot of great feedback from the businesses and thanking us, being responding to their concerns and their needs. We're usually first on the scene to de-escalate any situations within the downtown core, which we've got letters from the RCMP stating it's supported them to be able to deal with other matters. They come when there's a situation that needs to be dealt with by a police member, but typically our staff are trained in de-escalation processes, so that we kind of can feel when something's up and assist the person come inside the shelter or walk it off or contact interior health, mental health, or whoever we need. But we are first on the scene to de-escalate situations, as well as, a lot of our main goal is ensuring that individuals with this drug crisis around provincially there's some pretty scary stuff out there. So we're doing lots of health and wellness checks, making sure people aren't experiencing any overdose symptoms, experiencing any heat fatigue, anything like that. Any health issues, we're right on it and assisting the individual to get the help that they need medically and or through mental health. We engage with businesses all around town. We've gone up and down the streets. We have a peers employment contract that has supported 20 individuals in the past year, and paid employment services that are going out working with communities in Bloom, cleaning up the downtown area, out picking up garbages. They just washed a bunch of windows up and down the street, getting rid of all the cobwebs and dirty windows, and the downtown businesses have been really appreciative of that service, and that is working with the local shelter guests and assisting them to build relationships with community businesses and see that there's a caring community out there that just wants to be good neighbors, and they are definitely cleaning up the alley every day, cleaning up the downtown business, and working really hard to break the stigma about individuals that are homeless. So individuals, we work with Interior Health, we work with mental health and substance use. We've assisted at least 10 individuals, if not more by this time, to access support services for their substance use. Some have moved on to treatment, some have found employment. Individuals, 6 of them, we've been able to assist them to become housed in the community once they've had all the supports in place around them, and they're doing very well and are living in the community at this point and are very good tenants, helping out landlords in the community, as well as setting an example for a lot of the others that may have thought there was no hope to see that there is. We've assisted individuals, 4 individuals from other communities. If somebody shows up in Trail and they're from another community, our first priority is to come up with a housing plan of how we can get back to their community where they have the most supports. You know, their support systems aren't here. We are able to get bus tickets to down to Vancouver, over to the East Kootenays, West Kootenays, as well as locally. But typically we're seeing a lot of people that through various circumstances have ended up in Trail and just want to go home, and we're able to assist them for sure. And like I say, again, there's been over 20 individuals receiving paid wages through the employment program we offer at CDS called Peers. And that's been a really successful program with a whole lot of success stories there that are motivating others to make changes in their life. And we're happy to be there to support them to make these changes for the better.
So safety and security. BC Housing, along with CDS, strive to create a safe space for shelter guests, for staff, for businesses and community members. Our goal is to always ensure that both within and around the shelter, people feel safe, secure, and supported. There are a few components we can recognize as being a part of this. So one of those is ensuring that we have experienced staff that participate in ongoing training. This could include mental health first aid, de-escalation techniques, support in administering overdose prevention tools, etc. Alongside training, ensuring that we have staff available 24/7 at the shelter to support guests and follow up on any concerns in the community. Property maintenance is also a component, and as Sheila touched on earlier when talking about outreach services, cleaning up other properties for graffiti, etc. So this is also, a part of the shelter that CDS operates, and to ensure that the shelter site is clean, accessible, and inviting. Additional security measures would include cameras located within the shelter, as well as the front and back entrances, and the new addition of flood lighting in the back alleyway, so it is well lit for safety of staff, guests, and neighboring businesses. And last but not least, communication and collaboration within the community. This means that CDS actively works with community partners to ensure that services are available for guests at the shelter. Tyler, next slide, please. Thank you so much. So within that communication and collaboration part, we do want to touch on the who to call, when to call document. This document was created last November, and it's an important piece to facilitate open conversation with community members and with businesses. So this document helps others decide who and when to call at moments when they have concerns for the safety or well-being of someone, perhaps see something in the community and they're not sure who to connect with if they do have concerns, questions, or perhaps compliments that they wish to share with the shelter. And so if you can see on the fifth line down, there is the shelter listed career development services and a direct contact email and number available for anybody to reach out at any time. And so this document was circulated in to all the downtown businesses last November, and it will be circulated again for anyone that may need a new copy. Next slide, please, Tyler. Thanks so much. So here we have the current options before council. We currently have the Lenina shelter and it's operating at 18 beds. So we of course are asking for this to be approved, and if so, we're able to continue operating shelter services for people. If it is not extended, shelter guests will not have anywhere else to go, and that leaves upwards of the 30 to 45 people that CDS supports, not only just the shelter but the outreach services that also connect with people who are precariously housed in the community. So I'll leave that with you guys. I think the next is our questions. There we go.
These questions for council or for the members at large?
Thank you. I think at this point, Councillor Santori, we need to move into public question period. Unless council has specific questions, we can open the floor for council to ask questions of BC Housing. So why don't we do that? I'm just going to ask that those of you who are not council members and that are elevated, if you can, and see yourself on the Zoom screen, if you can just turn your camera off, because I'm going to have to count votes and hands, and it's a little bit difficult for me to do that when we have so many blocks of people. Everyone gets quite small, and as people get elevated off attendees. So thanks very much. Okay, so does council at this point have any direct questions of BC Housing?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, Councillor Santori, go ahead, and then Councillor Dobie, I see you next.
Well, first of all, before I begin, I don't want Tyler and Rachel to take what I'm saying personally. I understand that you have a job to do and you have an agenda, and you have pecking orders from the minister responsible for BC Housing. First of all, I think, Tyler, you made a statement that this is a 3-year process. For the record, this process started 2 years ago. So this will be a minimum of a 5-year process. I hope I'm not disclosing anything confidential. I won't mention any particular businesses, but I find it very disturbing when we are told that nothing has come to fruition because property values in Trail are too high. For lack of better words, I find that extremely laughable when we see BC Housing spending tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars in Vancouver, Victoria, some of the most expensive real estate cities in the country. So I have a real difficulty with that. I think another statement that Tyler made was we have to find the money. I'm going to digress a bit, but I think it's a matter of government priorities. When a city or government can spend $500 million to host 5 soccer games in the Lower Mainland, I think the community would agree that priorities are not focused on those people that are most vulnerable in our cities. We speak about providing a safe, what's the words that we used? Safe and secure place for our homeless population. And please, I am knocking those individuals who have been unfortunately faced with these challenges. But I think it's incumbent upon government and BC Housing to ensure that our citizens are also safe and secure. And I can assure you, and I think the crowd that's at City Council today is only a minute portion of the people. I don't get a lot of calls from the public on a number of issues. I've had more calls in the last 48 hours than I probably have in the last 4 years expressing concerns. So I'll talk to the bylaw at a later date, but I think BC Housing has failed our city. I honestly do, especially if the prime concern is the cost. I mean, that is, again, excuse my term, is laughable. I think that the businesses in this city have been more than compassionate and understanding and extremely giving to those that are most vulnerable in our community. But at some point, they can only give so much. They can only tolerate so much. There are businesses that are going out of businesses. There are individuals who are losing their jobs because of what is happening in the downtown core. And that's just adding to the problems we already have. So I know BC Housing, or the two of you here tonight, cannot answer those questions, but I would urge the businesses and the community. Before I go on to that, it's been individual council members and our council who have been taking the brunt of the criticism of what's happening in the downtown core. But to the defense of every member of this council and our staff, we have gone far and above the call of duty in terms of keeping the community clean, ensuring that no tent cities are created in our downtown core, utilizing police services that could be used actually busting drug pushers as opposed to dealing with the petty violence and drug abuse in the downtown core. Our ambulance services, our first responder firefighters are using their resources. So as a city, I think we've gone far and above what is required of municipalities. Those types of services for this purpose were never intended for municipalities to deal with. So on that note, I would urge the business community, and I urge you to keep calling me and keep writing letters to council. But I think the ear that you have to get is that of our MLA and the Ministry of Social Services, and let them know that you're not content with how we are being treated here in Trail, and that they have to take steps. And there's and I just want to end this by saying, just so the public is aware, the fact that we may at some point get 30 or 40 units, many of those people that we see, I'm sorry for referring to them as these people, many of those most vulnerable will not choose to go into the housing units, even though they're provided.
Amen. Yeah.
There has to be more done in terms of mental health, more things done in terms of drug addiction and law enforcement, if you want to truly eliminate and ensuring that those people are getting the help they needed, rather than having them fend for themselves on the street and be subjected to drug pushers who have been busted and are spending a menial 1 year in prison for trafficking in narcotics. To be blunt, if they could track the drug pusher that caused a death, they should be charged for manslaughter and not for drug trafficking. Anyways, I'm at my boiling point, so I better keep my mouth shut. Thank you for this opportunity.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Santori, for leading us off. Okay, and Councillor Joby, you're next, and then I'm going to go to Councillor Kashoni. Go ahead, Councillor Joby, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Payson. Pretty well everything Councillor Santori has said, I think all of council can agree to as well. I just wanted to come at this from a little bit of a different perspective in terms of what it's costing. I think what it's costing our taxpayers, because no matter what umbrella a certain service comes under, it all relates down to tax dollars supporting those services. So the things that we've had going on is, of course, we've already heard from Sheila Adcock in terms of the outreach teams. We have Selkirk Security and Nursing, or Selkirk nursing students have been out working on the streets. We have put a cooling center in last year. We've been providing a safe injection site, not directly to the city. I'm always just relating this to taxpayer dollar. We've had a food bank that's been running for quite a few years now for the low income people and the homelessness. Selkirk Security provides security 24/7 in the city of Trail. We have the RCMP policing, and I would just like to mention in terms of cost with an RCMP officer, the cost right now is $170,000 a year per RCMP officer. As you know, the federal government has just provided a 30% increase. Part of that increase has already been reflected through the regional district, which of course gets reflected back to our tax base as well. So once again, taxpayers' dollars. The rest of that 30% will go into next year's budget through the regional district, and then will be fed down to us. We pay for an incredible amount of the policing. Councillor Kashoni can probably confirm this, but I think we pay for about 60 or 70% of the policing costs through the budgeting. We've also been providing grant funding to CDS from time to time. We've had extra Selkirk security coverage in really difficult times, as well as RCMP coverage. I believe we did that last year down at Gyro Park. So there's many, many things that are going on that are costing the taxpayers of this community in support of the homelessness and the issues that are tied and related to it. So when we talk about costs and the money from the provincial government, I think what we have been paying in order to keep our city as safe as we can and support these homelessness people and give them the needs that they require, our bill probably will be double of whatever money you're considering spending on putting in a service, a full service within the city of Trail. And I'm just also wondering, regarding the amount of money, it was very quickly after the provincial government threatened to make the temporary shelter in Penticton into a permanent one, that the purchase of 3 hotels happened in Penticton to the tune of $17 million. I was surprised at how quickly the purchase of the hotel in Nelson came through at $3.2 million, with another $1 million required to bring it up to code. And I know the funding came through pretty quick as well for Castlegar. So we have already come forward with some locations. They might not be 100% the perfect location, but what we're looking at this point, we're a starving community. So we're just right now looking at, you make it simple, is a loaf of bread. And if the loaf of bread means we can get a service with accommodation for up to 20, 25 people on a permanent basis, and all the other amenities and support services that Sheila has mentioned can be incorporated in that building, then that's a great start. We can always grow and go from there. But right now, to say that we can't find anything, I think we presented 2 years ago a very good location that, yes, in terms of purchase price and upgrading it, came to close to $2 million. Now that's probably gone up because of the cost of building, but it was a reasonable answer at that time. And they said because of the cost of the building, they couldn't do it. Well, I found that very difficult to understand then, and even more so now, since we're another 3 years down the road and we have no solution. We have no answers from the provincial government. Thank you, Mayor Payson.
Thank you, Councillor Doby. And Councillor Kashoni, go ahead.
Thank you. Well, not to belabor the situation, but generally what's happened is that the city of Trail has been identified as the location for the shelter. Now, in the regional district, in the East End specifically, you have Area A and Area B, which are the 2 areas outside, one on Costa Rossa and one down in Juanita. And then you have 5 municipalities. And the position I took, or the position I take all the time, is that we're not a city of 7,600. We're really an area of 22,500 people who, in fact, are bearing the brunt of the situation by having our shelter in the downtown. They're not going to congregate in Area A or Area B or in Warfield or in Montrose or even in Fruitvale so much. So we really represent to the area a population of almost 23,000 people. And in that way, we should be treated differently than, for example, an area where it would be like maybe like Nelson. Nelson, it has, of course, the North Shore, which has 12,000 people, but the people aren't, but they're not going to be congregating out in the North Shore. They're going to go to downtown Nelson. Be the same thing as Penticton. Penticton's individual. It's not like it's got different areas around there. They all go to Penticton. But as been said by both council members ahead of time, you know, the money that's been spent in terms of, say, for example, you know, Penticton and Castlegar and of course Nelson, all three of those people, all those three of those areas, they do not have their homeless situation or the service for the homelessness in the downtown core. Castlegar moved it out to the motel. It's on the Strip. And they have a 50 people came out to a meeting complaining about it on the Strip, not downtown. Penticton moved it way down to Skaha Lake onto the 3 motels they bought for 17 million, and they're not downtown. And that's when the Penticton council told them they were going to shut down the center. And after they were told that, the BC Housing went in and bought those 3 motels. Nelson, again, they're not in the downtown. They're down by the tracks there because I went down to take a look at them a month ago. And then they bought the motel across the bridge. So they're not in downtown. We're the only one that's got them downtown. And that's it's a real serious situation. So I don't know how the vote's going to go, but I guess one clarification that I would like to have made, and that's probably Andy or Colin, the motion says that council, taking into account public input received, consider the renewal of the temporary use permit for the expansion of the homeless shelter that operates within the premises at 1450 60 Avenue for up to 3 years. Now, does that mean that's the 18 beds? And if that was turned down, they would be keeping the 10? So that would be the question I need to have answered, because a couple of people have asked me that already. Is that the situation? Look at the wording.
So does someone from BC Housing want to address that issue specifically with the permit that's being advanced?
Yeah, I can. I can say that the 10 units were operating there before without a temporary use permit. So it's our proposal that those were operating before so that they would continue again.
I'm sorry, we can't hardly hear you. Maybe you can say it again, please.
Yeah, can I just take a second here, Sandy? I don't know if there's any way, although we're going to start probably with the public question period fairly soon, but we're getting a lot of feedback, even people like sneezing and coughing from the council chambers, and it's really makes it difficult to hear. So if we can mute the council chambers until we open the mic, that would be really helpful. And Tyler, I'll turn the floor over to you to answer Councillor Kashoni's question again.
Thank you, Mayor Passon. Thank you, Councillor Kashoni. My understanding is that the 10-bed shelter was operating before the temporary use permit was issued, and because of that, it's our proposal that that was in conformity with your bylaws, and we wouldn't need to seek a further approval. But as you said, that really is a question of interpretation for your staff.
Well, we need to have that clear, because if the vote was to go against it, does that mean it shuts down all the beds, or we would still keep the 10 that are there? That's
can I speak to that too, though?
Yes, Sheila, go ahead.
We originally had 8 beds only open at night. So that was the permit we had from 9 at night till 9 in the morning only. That's the permit that we had originally. Then when COVID hit and we were asked to open 24/7, and so if we went back to the original permit, it would be only at night, 9 at night till 9 in the morning for 8 beds. And that would have 45 people on the streets all day right now with no supports.
So you would still keep, then my understanding is you would still keep the 8 beds.
Only at night. So during the day, there wouldn't be any services. If that's the way it was, then they would be on the streets all day with no services and no food.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Thank you. Any other counselors want to speak?
Well, just one
Or-
other,
Yep.
one question of what efforts have been made to find a temporary location? A temporary location meaning one that will be suitable until such time as a permanent structure can be constructed? Or is this the first and only option that you've looked at, and that's us extending the permit? And if so, why?
We've been focused up till now on finding a permanent solution. However, we're open to exploring temporary sites as well, and we'll be meeting with your staff as was directed by council monthly to review sites that are appropriate both for temporary and long-term projects.
Thank you.
Okay, any other counselors? Counselor Jones, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Payson. I have to address the fact that we have to really look at what the businesses have done to support or to work through this crisis that we're in right now. We have to consider what I want to thank CDS for the work that they've done. Everybody in this community has worked really hard to resolve this issue. We're talking about it tonight. It's not a issue that we as a community wants to see it in our community. But you know what? The saying is, it takes a community to build a community, I guess. I guess what I'm trying to say is that we've worked really hard. And I just want to thank the businesses. I want to thank CDS. I want to thank everybody, all the resources, the stakeholders that have been involved. We have to thank the police and the first responders. I mean, everybody has been, just stepping up to the plate, trying to do the best that they can. And I really hope that BC Housing is really recognizing the effort that this community has put forward to help this situation. And it's frustrating, and it's very frustrating. I have been on council. This is my 4th year, and my 1st year, we started this process of finding a shelter for the homeless. And we're still looking today. Nothing's changed. We're in crisis mode. We went through a pandemic. We're still going through, as far as I'm concerned, another crisis. There's a sense of urgency here to get our community back. And, we don't have the answers. It's in every community in this province. Every community is looking for answers. And I just want to commend our community for the work that they've done. And I think that we've worked really hard. And I think that we need to be recognized by BC Housing for the work that we've done. I wanted to, having said that, I want to ask BC Housing, my understanding is, if we don't accept this temporary permit, if we don't extend it to the 3 years, that as of September 21st, 2022, when the permit expires, that's the end of the shelter. It is no more. The doors close and we just walk away, and the people go on the street and we go about our business. Is that the way we want to end this? Because you know what? We've worked really hard to get where we are today. And I honestly don't believe that that is what our community is expecting.
So I think that is the same question that Councillor Kashoni just asked. So the
Actually,
temporary
no,
permit
It
expires.
isn't the same. It's not the same question.
So temporary permit expires November 1st, 2021. Sheila had indicated that if the permit is not approved for another, say, up to 3 years, whatever council decides, that the shelter would revert back to the existing usage, which is 8 beds upstairs from 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. with no support during the day. So to the pre-COVID level of service. Now, Rachel and Tyler, can you confirm that that's the reality? I think this is a really important question that's been advanced several times here to make sure that I think council and the community fully understands the consequences of a motion and a decision on this matter.
Also, just to confirm too, if that was from November till March. So it was only winter shelter at night from November till March, pre-COVID. That's what our permit said, and that's what we would revert back to. So the doors would absolutely close totally until November 1st, and then it would only be nighttime, 8 beds, and the rest would be out somewhere.
Yeah.
But that our original permit was November 1st till the end of March, only at night, 12 hours period.
And we can speak operationally, that's what the operations would be. The matter of whether that conforms with your bylaw is a matter of interpretation for the city. So I can't speak that conforms to the existing bylaw. That really, like, I can say, that's what was happening there before. But I don't know how the city will interpret that today or tomorrow.
Okay, I don't know if staff need any time to look at that or have to answer that, but Councillor Butler, I'm going to take you next to address BC Housing.
Sure. I just, to keep it really simple and I agree with everything that's been said. What I really want to convey here, especially to BC Housing, is you see a council chamber full of people. You see an attendee list full of people. I want to, first of all, say thank you to all those sitting in chamber tonight and all those on the WebEx or on the Zoom this evening as attendee. This is obviously a problem or a situation that we find ourselves in where we're struggling. And we are, I think all of us are coming here from different sides of the table, wanting to come to a solution and to work together. So I think it's really important that we acknowledge that we're all here. We might have different points of view, but we're trying to get to a common goal. And so thank you to all of those who are out there tonight, because it's really important that we're here discussing this, as it is probably one of the most the biggest issue we faced in the last 4 years. And I would like to almost extend that point to Councillor Santoris from the beginning. This has been something that's been going on for a bit longer than 2 years of this council. It's probably closer to 4. So when we talk about a 3-year cycle, we're almost into 2 cycles. So thank you.
Okay, Councillor Kashoni, go ahead, please.
Well, I hate to disagree, but I don't believe that the whole shelter would shut down. I mean, I'm looking at 3.6, 3.5. When we made the decision on the COVID, when COVID came in, we allowed for, at least the way I read it, and I went back into my records and I read it as that, yes, it would be operating, the 8 beds could be operating on a 24-hour basis. So unless administration can find out exactly, I'm reading through for the temporary use permit on September 21st was granted with, et cetera, et cetera. I believe that in actual fact, that if the permit is denied, the 3-year permit extension, because remember, this motion only is applicable to the 18 beds, not to the 8 beds. I still think the 8 beds could operate. And I guess my concern is if you go to 18 beds and then you go to 28 beds, you're going to have that many more people looking at it because they're coming in from around the Kootenays, and that was identified by Mr. Baker there, for example, and Rachel. It's a Kootenay look, and the Kootenays is not trail. Kootenays is not trail because they, like I said before, they will not congregate in Warfield. They're going to come to trail. So I really think that staff needs to look at that particular. And Sandy Lucchini did the report, and when I read the report, I read it differently than what Sheila suggests. So I don't know what to say about that, but it makes quite a big difference between shutting it down completely and keeping it open with 8, but having 24-hour service.
If I may, Mayor. Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
Go ahead, Councillor McClure, and then Ms. Lucchini, go ahead.
I just that we've brought this forward to council because we know that the temporary use permit is going to is up at the end here. And so we're trying to get in front of this so that we can understand what options are available, and understand that communities across BC, the country, are dealing with similar issues. And if council decides, then yes, we will have to look at other options. But for today's vote, what we're looking for is the option on the table is for 3 years. If council decides that they are going to turn that down, then we will have to come back with another investigated options for what's available in our community based on zoning and what might be approved. Again, I'm not necessarily sure what the difference between the 10 and the 18. BC Housing is looking at a facility in our area trying to provide housing and support, and that's not going to stop. And so I guess for me, when I look at what we're providing here is the option of flexibility. We don't want it to be needed for 3 years, but we are also recognizing that if we do find a location and have to construct or do major renovations, that's going to take some time. And again, the reason that we brought it forward on the 3 years is because based on the community charter, you're allowed for one renewal. And if you do it for 1 year, then that will now be an option. You cannot go back for renewal of the temporary use permit, and we will have to go through the process of having to create permanent zoning if we're going to continue to have the shelter there. So again, all kinds of things to consider and to look at. We didn't bring that forward because we feel that this has been something that has been a positive service, although many may disagree. I actually am concerned to think about what happens if we don't provide this, and the outcome that comes with that may be far more difficult for the downtown to deal with if you're putting people out that certainly currently now have food and some shelter and some support, public hygiene facilities. I think that the city may be, as much as it's frustrating right now, may come to a conclusion that that would be a decision in the future that was not a good idea.
Ms. Lucchini, did you want to add anything to that? And then I think Councillor Santori had his hand up.
Sure, I just want to make sure you can hear me because I am on the, okay. Just want to be, CAO Moncler was very good in trying to answer that question. It's not an easy question to answer, but I just wanted to also recognize that the zoning bylaw doesn't currently have a definition of an emergency shelter, nor is an emergency shelter a permitted use in any zone. So absent a temporary commercial use permit, the zoning bylaw would have to be addressed. And a zone established for that particular use. So it was thought best to do that at a time when a more permanent location was established, so we could determine the best zoning for it at that time. It's just that emergency shelters are sort of new in the last 4, 5, 6 years, and it's not something that's contained within our zoning bylaw.
So Ms. Lucchini, is it fair to say then if, and this is just hypothetical, if it goes to the point where the decision is to not extend the permit and we have to rezone it, the council would then be in a position to be making a zoning decision, potentially in favor to extend the shelter, really in an area that we are all not in favor of that shelter being, because we all realize that there is significant issue with the shelter being right in the downtown core. And I think, one of the major things I can say about this council is that throughout this 4 years, we have been unfailingly supportive of trying to help our community as a whole, not just segment out the vulnerable persons, not just segment out the businesses, taking a community as a whole approach to try to find a solution that is really often out of the control of this city council. We don't have the funds, we don't have the budget to buy and operate a supportive housing complex on an annual basis. We just do not have that taxation base, nor is it our responsibility. So we have been steadfast in our commitment to encourage our stakeholders to work together and really be positive with BC Housing to say we are on board Like, we need help and we want help. And please work to find some kind of solution for our community. And I understand that Trail is landlocked. I understand that there is issues with acquisition of land, but we are not the only community with this problem, and it doesn't get any cheaper as we wait. So I think we really need some action on this, and glad everyone's here talking about it. And I'm really hoping we can come to a solution. And Councillor Santori, did you have your hand up to say another few comments?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Well, what I'm hearing is quite disturbing. And that's in terms of the consequences that the city will face if the bylaw does not, the permit does not get extended. First of all, let me make it very clear that there will be a blame game if we do not renew this and things deteriorate in the downtown core. First of all, let me go to the defense of this, as Lisa said, of this entire community. This community is not to be blamed. This council is not to be blamed. If there's any fixing of blame, and again, Tyler and Rachel, please do not take this personally. It is the failure of BC Housing to have started or completed this in a more timely fashion. Now, if in the next 6 months, before November, BC Housing can show me or this council a signed purchase or a new facility that may need some major upgrades, and we have to extend it for another 6 or 7 months to accommodate you, I might be open to something like that. But without any fixed date, I can assure you it will be the full 3 years. It will be 3 years by the time you get architectural drawings, geotech, or whatever it is that you need. It's a minimum of 3 years. And to tell me different, I think would be a stretch. So come back to this council before November and say, look, we have found a temporary location, but we need to extend the permit for another 4 months, 5 months, 7 months. Maybe this guy can't speak for all of council, but I think that's a compromise. So the public should know that if this does not go through, I think every councillor can vote the way they want, but for those that will oppose it, we're opposing it because we feel it's in the best interest of our city, in the best interest of our community. We talk about consequences, but nobody's been talking about the consequences this has already had with our existing businesses, or those who have been violated, or those who have been stolen from. Those are the consequences, and nobody's talking about those people. They're the innocent victims. So BC Housing, again, I go back to the minister responsible for BC Housing, and businesses and community members, get a hold of your MLA. People didn't hesitate coming to my office when they weren't happy. So if you're really upset about what's happening here, get a hold of your MLA. I'm sure she will work very hard to get your cause listened to back in Victoria to the minister responsible.
Is there anything else from council? Councillor Doby, and then we're going to go to a public question period.
Okay, thanks, Mayor Payson. I'll try to be quick here. I'm just going to piggyback on what I said this time last year. I immediately addressed the situation and indicated that I would not support the addition of the 10 beds. I clarified that by saying it's the hardest decision to make when you're trying to push people out of the door during the winter and inclement weather and expect them to try to survive on the street. I don't want that for anybody in this city. But the reason I didn't support it, and I spoke very highly to that, was because of the city businesses in the downtown. I don't know how to shut this off. In the downtown core area that nobody seemed to be wanting to support. I had worked with those businesses off and on for a period of 2 or 3 years, listening to their pleas and looking at the kind of money. About 5 or 6 businesses in that area have spent well over $50,000 on steel gating, on fences, on security lights, on cameras, the whole gambit. And these are businesses that have been established in Trail long before we ever had to deal with homelessness. And I think they've been left to be the silent partner here, and nobody has been supporting them enough. Now, it seems to me that that's coming to the surface more, as well as for those citizens that tell us, I don't want to go downtown anymore. I'm nervous about being downtown. Just had another purse snatching last week, right in front of the Bank of Montreal. Parents don't want their young teenage citizens downtown during the day for fear of what's going on in the streets. So we're dealing with that level of fear, not only with the citizens, but what's happening to the local businesses, especially those that are closest to the CDS in the downtown core. So I'm going to say right up front, I'm not supporting any extension under the 5-year or even under a 1-year program. I have to continue to support the business people in this town. Thank you.
Anyone else from council have anything else to say? No? Okay, so we're going to move now on to the public question period. So as I indicated before, we're going to do the people who are, hear from the people that are in the gallery. If you're part of an organized group, I ask that one person speak on behalf of the group. So what you want to do is you want to come forward, and there's a podium there. You're going to say your first, last name, and your mailing address, your physical mailing address, and address council. Just want to remind everyone, this is not a Q&A period where you can pepper council and BC Housing and get immediate answers. That is not how this particularly works. But if you have questions, hopefully throughout the course of the evening, if they haven't been answered, then we can get them answered for you. And we can even consider doing like a Q&A document at the end to try to get all the answers for everyone and post it on our website. So with that said, council chambers, the first person to come forward, can I just have someone come up to the microphone, please? If you would like to address council, first, last name, and your physical address.
Good afternoon, council and mayor. My name is Dave McKay. My mailing address is 324 Austin Lane. My concern right now, I feel sorry for the businesses down at the Colander and the Bank of Montreal. I know they wash it, but when you're sitting down there during the day and you see them all sitting out there, I think it should be cleaned up. And McDonald's is another hot spot. And the reason why I know this, Lisa, is my son is homeless. My son is a druggie. And yes, I wrote my article in the paper. And a couple of them, councilors know who I am. And Sandy, I'd like to just say thank you regarding my son with the drug problem. I guess I have no problem getting a new building. I'd rather spend $200 extra on my taxes and have these people somewhere, and they need help. And I think we should have a doctor or somebody that can relate to them. Because my son has to go to court on Thursday because he broke into his mother's house for the 4th time. I love my son dearly, but I can't take him in because he's a druggie. It hurts me so much. So, and the courts are not doing anything. My son has been up to court 8 times and it's been postponed. It's a B&E on his mother's house. What would happen if he murdered somebody? I just think that we need to step up to the plate. I love trail. I'm from the coast. I love trail very much. But what about the lady that was 89 years old and the 23-year-old lady pushed her on the stairs? You know what? She's still waiting to go to court. But what about the lady that falls in her 80s? Anyways, I thank you all for listening to me, and I hope come October 15th that the council and the mayor work together, not against each other. We need to work. I love trail very much. Anyways, thank you all for your time.
Mr. McKay, thank you very much. I just want to thank you for sharing your personal story with us as well. That's very challenging and really courageous of you to advance your story to create compassion and understanding about the situation in the public forum. And I will say that, we've had a lot of talk tonight about supportive housing, and we've had talk about enhancing the shelter, but council has also advocated very significantly for increasing wraparound services, whether that's mental health supports, whether it's street nursing, whether it's outreach workers, addiction services. We are fully committed to doing what we can to advocate for the full suite of wraparound supports, because one piece of this puzzle is not going to necessarily solve it. We need to have a very comprehensive wraparound approach for our community, as with many other communities. So thank you, Mr. McKay. And can I ask the next person who wishes to come up to address council to come to the podium?
Council, Mayor, Dale Detzler, 908 Roslyn Avenue is my mailing address, and I felt compelled to speak now after the gentleman that just spoke. Maybe I digress here for a moment, but the CDS homepage identifies that since 1989, they have supported, in quotes, supported individuals with significant barriers in the greater communities to find employment, unquote. I commend you for that. The CDS website then indicates it has since evolved into what is called a homeless program. According to the CDC website, a huge, in quotes, a huge factor in individuals being able to maintain their employment is the fact that many are struggling with housing issues, unquote. My question is, maybe I digress, but has City Council asked how many of their clients in this program are currently employed but having trouble maintaining their employment due to their housing situation? A second question, what data has City Council received this homeless program is successful? How many of CDS clients, based on their on CDS goals, have regained employment? Okay, so maybe I digress there, but I couldn't but mention it. I mean, the elephant in the room here is mental health and drug addiction. I mean, Councillor Santori has mentioned it twice, and the solution is a focus on mental health and drug addiction. This is the fact finding that compared the cities of San Francisco and San Diego. The mayor of San Diego invested money from the government, not in building homes, but building lives again, helping those suffering by providing services for mental health and addiction. San Diego has reduced their homeless problem, and San Francisco has radically escalated their housing crisis and drug and mental health problems. Success occurs at grassroots government. It begins here with City Council and you, Mayor. Provincial government has proven it is not working. Get the help these people really need, not programs that enable them to continue with their drug addiction and proliferates their mental illness. So this wraparound concept, you know what? Put the money towards drug addiction and helping these poor people on the street, because just facilitating their drug addiction and their mental health, it's not working. It hasn't worked. It's obvious, and the government is failing us. And it begins with grassroots. It's grassroots right here, and the mayor needs to take responsibility, take the councillors, and let's find the solution, which is getting the proper help for these people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Detzler. Next person, come on up, please.
Excuse me. Hello, I'm Mark Steves. I run Roslyn Computer Repair. We're located at 1050 El Dorado Street. Recently, we've had to call 911. We found a fella overdosed in our bathroom. When all was said and done, we had to get the toilet replaced at a cost of $500 to my landlord because he had flushed all the syringes down. This program where we're enabling these people, you know, my heart goes out to them, having been one of them in the past. I'm 30 years clean. I did the Main and Hastings Street Shuffle for 12 years and come a long way. I don't like what's happening to our town. I try to help when I can, but I'm just getting kicked in the face for it. I think when I got help, I wasn't given a bed. I was given a bed, but it was in a recovery house. And there I learned how to be a human being and how to survive. Took a couple times, but by the grace of God, here I am today. I disagree with the system that's happening in our city. I've done some research on Medicine Hat, and Medicine Hat, Alberta, basically calls themselves, they beat the homeless thing. They have a good program. It's very easily to access them because they're Canadian. And I don't know why we can't utilize their program or at least ask them for help. I don't know why the city council can't go down and just give them a call, find out what they did and how they made things work. But right now, with what's going down in that alleyway, I can't even express it in words. I am currently moving my business from 1050 Eldorado to Spokane Street, and my front door looks down at that alley. I'm concerned because some of the business that we do, we're in charge of pretty much every debit system in this town. And I don't know how to secure my business in such an area. So, someone said that that's cost lots of money for business owners. It's cost me personally, I would say about $5,000 in camera equipment. And it's my plan when I take over that business to put a camera down that alleyway and stream it live. I'm fed up, right? I want it to end. I can't go to the bank after, I work till 6. If I don't get to the bank before 8 o'clock, I can't make a deposit. I'm nervous when I come out of the bank with large sums of money because I deal with the Bank of Montreal. And I'm nervous when I come out. I stand at the bank in line and look out the window at my truck so that just in case somebody didn't break into it while I was in the bank. It's a crazy way to live. And I feel like we're being held hostage by these people. It's not fair. That's all I have to say. One more thing to say. Just recently, my building at 1050 Eldorado was sold. And from what I understand, it was sold with the purpose of becoming a government facility for career development training. That's according to my thing. I've also heard that it was bought to be a homeless shelter, a low-income shelter. I don't know, but is there any truth to that?
I think I can probably just address that to dispel any myths. So I believe the meeting, the space you're talking about is where the Skills Center has purchased, and that is to do enhanced government training and programs. The city itself has not had any confirmation from BC Housing that a location has been acquired for a shelter or supportive housing. And again, thank you very much for sharing your personal story with us tonight. Is there anyone else in the council chambers that would like to address council and come forward?
Tony Drady from 27 Hazelwood Drive Trail. I was reading the motion here that was presented, and it says that the council take into account public input received. What sort of public input have you received as a council? Have you been receiving that, or the businesses are in favor of having it downtown or not in favor, or was there a questionnaire that went out? I'm just not really sure what you mean by the actual public input received. I just want clarification.
That's what this is.
So you're considering this as our public input? Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I thought that it was already had been received and that the motion was put on the table for us to discuss additional public. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
One more thing. So in addition to that, we had posted that this was going, it was in the paper. And so there's also the fact that the zoning, we have to provide letters to the businesses that are local to the area. So those have all gone out to the individual businesses. I think there was 50 or so. So it's not a case of this being the only opportunity. Certainly we communicated with those that were closest to it. And like I said, also with the fact that the note was in the paper, and we did not receive much feedback. We see that tonight that people have come out. And also had received late after the publishing of the agendas, a letter from the downtown society there.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Detzler.
Yeah, so I'd like to add one more point I meant to mention. I have a small business myself. I'm not located in the downtown core. I'm in the Gulch. And I have to express the same concerns that have been brought up by others here. It's the issue of safety and concern amongst the public. I have patients that are afraid to come into my office and leave my office due to what's been going on. It's escalated in the last 3 years. I don't recognize, every week I see new people that I've not recognized before. I used to have a good rapport with the people in the area, yourself, others in the area. And I have to say that it's rapidly declining in a rapid way. And I'm very concerned, as are my patients. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Detzler. Okay, anyone else in council chambers that would like to come forward to address council?
Hello, my name is Joanne Brown. I live in Fruitvale. I'm box 175. So I am here. I just want to present my concerns as well, and some of the stories that I have heard over time, and I just wrote it down. So please just bear with me. Thank you. So things that I've witnessed, businesses in Trail. I had a mentally challenged person who happened to be, oh, by the way, I am a landlord. So I just wanted to share this with you. So one of our tenants was arguing with a business owner regarding paying him for merchandise from the store. And the police were called and they came and they made the business owner like he was the criminal. I don't know why, but I thought that was something that you should know. Our local gym, there's the smoking in the alley affects the gym. It's a place of health and fitness, and my family members and myself have regularly had to ask the homeless not to congregate near the alley door. Another event had a drug addicted person shooting up in the gym washroom in the evening while a lone female employee was working. Another business owner consistently has to clean up human excrement from their doorway before opening for the day. Jubilee Park seniors have been afraid to enjoy the park with its namesake due to the homeless and drug addicted having sex there during the day. As a landlord, I can say that I know that CDS is great at taking care of these people, and I appreciate what they do for them. But as a landlord, I am left with a incredible cost of replacing and like flooring and cleaning and to get them out when you don't want them anymore is nearly impossible. Yeah, we're left with costly damage. There is a requirement of cleanliness, but that is not upheld. And then it's incredibly difficult to evict these individuals, which I mentioned before. So if we do not have a shelter, then the homeless and the drug addicted will logically move somewhere else where they are fed and clothed and sheltered and they can get help. But for Trail is so small, and I just feel that it's a mistake to have them here in larger numbers. So if you build this housing facility, all the things that I said here, I feel it will just get worse. It won't get better, it will just get worse, because if they don't get the help that they need, there's no incentive for them to change their lives for the better, because they have everything paid for. And I just think that there needs to be something else, and I do like what you said. In Medicine Hat, perhaps that's an option. Anyway, that is what I thought of that you might like to consider. And I would like to actually ask the question, if we have more beds, what happens to our town at that point? So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in council chambers who would like to address council?
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity. I was disappointed. The last meeting was a Zoom, which does nobody any service. So in person is much better. I wish we were all here together. You know, I just want to recap this great country we have. It's about 155 years old. It has been based on Land Titles Act, accountability, responsibility, and facing tasks head on. And this whole homeless issue has been something that every politician in Canada has abdicated on, and we're paying a huge price, and it's eroding the fabric of our society. And somebody better start making some tough decisions, because they're going to get harder and harder as time goes by. The job has to be done. What we're doing is not working. 100 little cities, and Vancouver erupted last week, is not going to solve this. There's a solution out there, but it's not in Williams Lake and Vernon and Penticton and Trail and Castlegar and Nelson. It is something else. And somebody at BC Housing in Victoria and Ottawa, as Vancouver pointed out this week, better start addressing it, because they talk about the most vulnerable. I'll remind you who the most vulnerable is. It's the taxpayer who's footing the bill. Okay, we're enabling bad behavior. And wherever I've been in life, that never lasted. Bad behavior was not enabled, and it was eradicated. And we're not eradicating it. I'm not saying eradicate, but it has to be dealt with, not the way we're doing it. I'm not going to go into any personal war stories. They're horrific. We have property in a neighborhood, downtown Trail. It's not treated as a neighborhood. It's not Glen Mary. It's not Sunnydale. It's a trash can. So that's about all I can add. I hope council tonight, you will make the tough decision and do the right thing. Thank you for your time. It's a tough job. I know when you went for council, you weren't betting on these kind of issues to be dealing with. It's popped up because it wasn't dealt with to begin with. Vancouver started shoving these people out for the 2010 Olympics. Here we are 12 years later. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Is there anyone else in council chambers that would like to come forward?
I'm Mrs. Fastuber. I'm the one that got pushed by one of the.
Mrs. Fastuber, can you please just state your, Eva, can you please just state your physical address?
845 Helena Street.
Thank you. Go ahead.
And we rent out a place. Now the steps that go up and down, that go in there, they don't mess. They come there and they do their needles. And they got a teenage son there that has to watch this, has been threatened with a knife from them. And you do nothing about this. Now, I'm tired of this, because something has to be done. Trailway used to be beautiful, and now it's a trash town, just exactly like Mr. Fisher said. And it's bad. You can't walk down the street. I walk to the bank. I come out of the bank. You got some money? You just come out of the bank. You give me some money. You got it.
Yeah.
I've had them lay there on the floor there when I'm going there. I'm scared to go in there after hours, because they're laying there on the floor. They're out with cuts, and they're not mental health. These are druggies. It's like an alcoholic, and they need the proper treatment and need a proper place to be in there to be treated. Not behind, because you got them in there for a while, and there they sleep overnight, and then they come during the daytime uptown shoot themselves up right in front of, by the bus stop, where they sit there and they shoot themselves up, and you say that they're good? Well, then look after them, Sheila. Have them at your place. Thank you.
Good job.
Okay, anyone else in council that would like to, or sorry, council chambers that would like to come forward? Okay, now with that, I just want to go over to the chat.
I'd like to
Okay,
say something,
thank you.
please. Teresa Young, I'm the branch manager of the Bank of Montreal, 1498 Bay Avenue. I would just like to say that I know the issues, what everyone said, and I agree with all of these issues. But my major issue is the people that are not allowed in the shelter. They can't cope with them in the shelter. So where do they go? They go to the Bank of Montreal and they go in the ATM room. Yeah, I can't look after them. I'm not trained to deal with someone that the people in the shelter can't deal with. If they can't deal with them, why am I expected to deal with them? And that's another example of why we don't have the facilities to take care of these people. They're only people that they allow in the shelter get to go in the shelter. Those that don't, they sleep in the Bank of Montreal. And I go to work in the morning and I have to deal with them. So I'm tired. That's the bit I'm tired about. Admittedly, if there's mess, I call the shelter, they come out, they clean it up. But to be honest, they pick up the garbage. It's dirty. The streets are dirty. The walls are dirty. There's crap everywhere. You know, nobody seems to care. Like, it's really gone down. And we're in the middle of a major renovation. Some of the stuff we've done has already been ruined. We had a brand new metal door put on. It's all gouged. There's someone tried to get in. It's only been on for 4 weeks. You know, it's like a vicious circle. We've spent thousands and thousands on the door. And I don't know what the answer is. I just feel there is a lack of the city caring what's going on. The bylaw officer was out there the other day where they were all sat on the Bank of Montreal. I looked out the window and I saw the bylaw officer and I thought, great, bylaw officer's moving them on. Oh no, he's petting a dog. Like, no one seems to care, no one seems to help. I have to deal with it. And my customers, they go to Castlegar, they won't come in. But the older customers, they're too nervous. So they drive to Castlegar. Lots of them. So that's my comments. I mean.
Thank you, Teresa. And I just want to say, I mean, whether it resonates or not, council and the city cares very, very much about every single person in every business. And it's no excuse, but it is a very complex problem that we are trying to figure out together. And we do need treatment. Absolutely. That's been identified many times tonight, and that is a key component. And we need people willing to go to housing facilities that have treatment and care and accept that and self-rehabilitate and have the support. So thank you all for really bringing forward some very, very salient and real issues that are impacting our city of Trail. And I don't think you're going to get any denial from council about the scope and magnitude of this position. And we're trying to find solutions here. Mrs. Fisher, go ahead.
Hi, thanks for having us all. I just want to say, and it's been touched on, that all communities in BC and Canada are facing these problems. Well, again, it's been touched on. We need treatment for people that have drug addictions. We need mental health treatment. Well, you cannot disperse the specialists all over BC and all over Canada. You need a bigger center where specialists can work with these individuals. You can't hope that specialists are going to come to these small towns. I had the unfortunate experience of visiting a friend at the Daily Pavilion and met a psychiatrist there. She said that this area is so underrepresented with their mental health experts, it's deplorable. That was 2 years ago. This problem has escalated. how can we possibly try to help these individuals in small towns like Trail of 7,500? It's impossible. We need bigger facilities in bigger centers. BC Housing has to reopen places like Riverview.
Thank you, Marion. Okay, last call at this point for anyone from council chambers who wishes to speak to address to council. Okay. Oh, come on forward.
John Arcangelo, 1320 4th Avenue in Trail. One recent concern, I think it's extremely serious. It is concerning Welfare Wednesdays in Trail. And I have been witness to some events. And what normally happens is the substance abusers, that element, they pick up their check, they go to one of the banks or wherever, cash it, and then business people have seen them in the shelter alley selling their drugs to those who are inclined or have the substance problem. And I do know after the last particular time, that night and other nights, there were more sirens than I've ever heard. And there was that week, there were overdoses, suicides, whether they're all connected or not, I don't know. But I have been told by people in the know, there was up to 3 overdose deaths in that week. There was a suicide, which may not even have been connected, but this is serious. And when you have drug dealers, wide open daylight, not afraid, in front of the town, and so many people are upset by that. They have no fear. We have a serious problem, just not in Trail, but that's one of the problems we're faced against, and it's bad, really bad. Thank you.
I am back. I have one more thing that I'd like to mention. My name is Joanne. I'm Box 175 in Fruitvale, but because we own property in Trail, I just need to say that we own a property at Tamarack, and the stairs that are on Tamarack, that's where they loiter, and so our tenants don't feel safe because they're congregating there and you can't use the stairs to go to and fro from Tamarack. So another issue you need to consider. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we're going to go to the Zoom room right now. So for those that are listed as, let me just get this straight, attendees on Zoom, so not council members, you have been given a prompt from Ms. Lucchini if you want to be elevated. And the only way you're going to be able to address council is if you elevate yourself. There was no chat function that worked while you were an attendee. So let me just see. I'm going to ask that any of you that are on the screen here, and I have Donovan, Tia, Ron, Laurel, and a VWS. You're the first ones, and Tammy, that have been elevated. If you would like to speak, I would like you to put up your hand, and then I will call you as we can come through. So Donovan, I saw your hand go up first. So if you can take yourself off mute and address council, that would be preferential.
Sorry,
Thank you.
Just a point of information. If 2 people are from the same organization, only one of them are going to speak from the chat room too.
Yeah, we're going to try to have groups.
We should not have Ron, Perepalkin, and Tia both speak.
So Councillor Kashoni, I understand. I was just listing who was on the screen. It is up to those groups to self-identify. For instance, you're probably talking about the downtown group.
Right.
So they can identify their person and and speak to the issue. I'm sure most of us have cell phones and they've been texting in the background, sorting that out. So thanks for bringing that forward. And Donovan Brown, you are first.
Thank you very much. Yes, Donovan Brown. I live in Fruitvale. I am Joanne's husband, and I wanted to talk as a landlord again. I want to reiterate that I've housed these hard to house people, and I've loved them and taken care of them the best I could. I had young Brad, the harshest rapper in Trail, for years. I looked after that guy, and it just got degenerated to a point where he just had to go. Because I'm not just responsible for one guy per building. I'm responsible for all of my tenants and their well-being and their right to have a safe, quiet place to live. And one of the shocking things that I learned was that the mental health workers, social workers, are so overloaded. I believe, if the number's right, find out, but 50 case clients per person is just too much, and they can only slot in a few hours a day or a week. So Brad never had the assistance that he needed. Otherwise, I'd be happy to have him still. Anyway, so there's an issue is how do we accommodate these people in need? And they were housed. I had a young lady, now she's on the streets because she brought in a guy and they destroyed the suite. That's costing to me huge. And I'm not a Ferrero. I don't own half a Trail. I own a few buildings, lots of units, right? And it cost me a lot of money, do a lot of overtime to make this work. But the solution isn't, I don't believe, low-income housing. Because if you give people something for free, they take it for granted, they neglect it, it falls apart, it destroys the neighborhood, it destroys that building and the land value, et cetera, et cetera. Do we want another Groutage? I don't think so. I sure hope not. That place is condemned. It looks horrible, it's awful. And I don't want that next door to my place. So I don't know if that's the issue. I really agree with which was stated earlier, is that we need more funds for mental health assistance, drug addiction. They need rehab. They don't need free needles. They don't need free phones. They need help. And I have compassion. My mom's a schizophrenic, paranoid schizophrenic, so I get it. I'm not callous to the needs of these people. Yeah, again, at Tamarack, my tenants are concerned for their safety. They can't go out in the evening because of they're hanging around the gas station, they're hanging around those stairs, they're using our recycling bins for their personal trash bins, and you know, it just goes on and on. In the presentation by BC Housing, they said there is 3 causes leading to homelessness. I don't know, structural, individual relationships, cost of housing. The cost of housing it's due to inflation, guys. The government is printing billions of dollars out of thin air, and it's driving everybody's costs up. Obviously, we know that. We're not obligated to provide a house for every single person. It's not a human right. It's necessary, and we want that for people. But how about this as a problem that's leading to homelessness? How about undermining the family unit? Oh, let's have SOGI tell the boys and girls that you're not a boy, you're not a girl, you can be whatever you want. Let's destroy the family unit, and then we'll have everybody on the street. No, we need strong families to raise people with skills and education that can go and work and be contributing to society. I think that's a real strong need. I love what CDS is doing to a point. I don't think it's the answer. If we are just becoming a highlight in BC, people are just flocking to us. And I think that's wrong. I don't think that's what we need to do. Our kids, we're responsible for the safety of our kids, our wives, our daughters, our children, to be able to walk across the alley, along the sidewalk safely without being afraid. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate what council is saying, that they're responsible for everybody, not just the homeless. And I really, really believe that, and the taxpayers as well. We're footing the bill. But again, I don't think we need to give stuff away for free. We need to deal with the root cause. We need help, mental health, rehab. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I'm going to go to Tammy McLean next. I'm just kind of working around my box here, around my screen with hands up. So Tammy McLean, are you speaking on behalf of the Trail Community Action Team? No? Okay.
So yeah, my name's Tammy McLean. I live in Rossland, 1301 Davis Street in Rossland. I am a family nurse practitioner in Trail and work with people with mental health and substance use issues. My practice is solely dedicated to people with both mental health issues as well as substance use issues. And so I'm very aware of the challenges. And as you know, so many people have pointed out here tonight, the issues are multifactorial and extremely complex. There is no one way to I don't know, fix the problem that we find ourselves in. What I did want to remind everyone about, though, is the health and human costs of homelessness, first of all. And I want to say that I am 100% in favor of expansion of the shelter so that we don't have people dying. Before I get to that, I did want to remind people that back in 2016, a public health emergency was called long before COVID was ever declared a public health emergency, and that was related to the toxic drug supply and the emergence of fentanyl in the drug supply. Now, having said all of that, not everyone who is living at the shelter is addicted to drugs. Some have mental health issues that are completely unrelated to substance use. Definitely some have substance use, but then we also have people who are unhoused and are seniors who, because of the low housing stock that we currently have in Trail, 0%, pretty well 0% vacancy. So it is, you know, it isn't just drugs, it isn't just mental health, it is a lack of stock that is affordable for people and our seniors for sure. And so I want to, commend the work of the Career Development Center for what they've had to do under some extremely challenging and complex and trying times, and not to discount anything that I've heard from council or from the people in the gallery. Substance use, I'd like to speak a little bit about, because that's where I, live my working life. It isn't as easy as just saying, pull up your socks and get on with it. If that was what it was, I think the vast majority of people would have done that already, and that we wouldn't be seeing some of the things that we see, such as open drug use and people overdosing and passing out on the streets. Right now, there is a drug alert in Trail that contains the drugs that are being found in our community, 34% fentanyl. So that means people are at high risk of death from using substances. Some people use substances to get high. There is no doubt about that. Some people use alcohol to do the same sort of thing. But what we're seeing, and many people are using substances so that they don't get dope sick. And, dope sick is not anything that I would wish on my worst enemy. So people are trying to not feel the effects of withdrawal from substances. We also have things in the drug supply right now, benzodiazepines. You may have heard of Ativan or Valium, which are common benzodiazepines that are used in our healthcare system, but we're not finding those kinds of things in the drug supply right now. What we're finding right now are things called bromazolam or flubromazolam, or something called xylazine, which is an anesthetic used in the veterinary world. And these things are being cut with the substances that are are circulating right now in our community. It's extremely dangerous from a health point of view to withdraw from substances without support that contain benzodiazepines in the concentrations that we find right now. In fact, people can die from benzodiazepine withdrawal. So we don't just have fentanyl, we have another substance in the mix as well. And so I just wanted to remind people that the folks that you see are really struggling with a health issue and not just a homelessness issue. So multiple things. I know that I've been working with organizations in part of my role as an addictions medicine practitioner to have an overdose prevention site in Trail. And what that would do is to have people go to a safe place where they could use their substances and not die because of the incredible death rates that we have in British Columbia right now. Over 2,000 people died last year of the toxic drug supply. They were not intending to die. The vast majority of them, they were addicted and sadly couldn't just stop. So an overdose prevention site, in order to just keep people alive, dead people do not recover. And so I am really asking for some compassion from City Council when they're thinking of this is, you know, what does a human life cost? I've heard a lot about costs. What is the cost of a human life? And that we're just trying to keep people alive while we sort out as a society, not just a trail problem, but as a society, what do we do about where we find ourselves in all across British Columbia and all across Canada? We have a crisis on our hands that we have not mobilized in the same way we did when COVID hit. And it's the, you know, extremely vulnerable people that the shelter is supporting right now who are going to pay the price with that for their lives if the shelter the expansion does not continue. If we want to talk about costs, I can tell you by not allowing people to have shelter in the summer and in the winter, the cost of emergency services are going to skyrocket. Ambulance services are going to skyrocket. Healthcare in our hospital and the pressures that our hospital is under will skyrocket because people cannot live in our country, in this area of our country, winter and summer without health harms coming to them. No one that I know, and I work with many, many of the people that you see downtown and many, many more that are your neighbors that live across the street from you that are housed and have substance use issues, but are deathly afraid for anyone to find out that they may be addicted because of the stigma that happens when people find themselves in the situation of being addicted to something. They won't dare say it because of the judgment that comes through. No one that I know wants to be a drug addict. No one that I know. You talked about not giving out needles. The reason why we give out needles to people to use is so that they do not experience life-threatening illness such as hepatitis C, HIV, hepatitis B, and a myriad of other bloodborne illnesses. People who inject substances are at risk of abscesses on their brain, abscesses on their spinal cord, overwhelming infections. They don't want that. Who signs up for that? It's not logical for people to do that. So what I am asking is that we don't just say, you know, we have to move these people out of here. We have a provincial and a national crisis on our hands right now, and it requires every single one of us to come together to try and find a solution and not to be blaming the victims that we see on the streets. Talk about wanting to go to the bathroom in human excrement. Show me where a person can go to the bathroom if you are unhoused right now, other than the shelter, the library potentially, and come across to mental health. We'll let you use our bathroom, but there is nowhere for people to actually relieve themselves. That's a failure of society right there. So I am 100% in favor of us giving the shelter another up to 3 years. It's not an endpoint. I hope we come up with a solution before 3 years, but I'm 100% in favor of saving people's lives and allowing them the chance to recover, as opposed to throwing them out onto the street where we will have people's death on our hands. So I will stop there.
Sorry, thank you, Tammy. Okay, so we've been at this for 2 hours now. I'm going to give Tia, this is the order, Tia, Wynand, and Diana. And then I think we need to take a quick bio break. So Tia, I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Payson and councillors. I am representing the Downtown Trail Improvement Committee. I'm also a realtor and understands the issues in regards to housing, in regards to lack of housing in our area. I think we need to take a strong look at BC housing requirements, as if we've been looking at properties downtown Trail and there aren't any that are 100% perfect, unless we're building them, I think we need to adjust our prerequisites and start to be a bit more flexible on what's perfect, because unless you're building it, you're not going to find perfect. You know, I understand that we have had, you know, original agreements in place with this extension right from day one. And, you know, how many women and seniors are actually in that shelter? How many people, you know, how much security is actually being provided? Not to just downtown, but how about when our first responders have to go and respond to a call out? Are they being protected? You know, the location currently, you know, is an entrapment area. So getting in and out of that location is terrible and is poorly lighted. Apparently there's been floodlights added, which is wonderful. But how about, you know, the aggressiveness that people are facing when they have to go and respond to those people? We're talking about their mental health and wellness for first responders, police, ambulance, but, you know, the people of the vulnerable society have health and wellness and mental issues as well. But what about our first responders? What about the people that have to deal with everybody else in our community? You know, we have to make sure everybody is protected and safe. You know, there is definitely, you know, options. You know, we want to make sure that every individual in our community is being represented. You know, if our bylaw and our RCMP are spending a majority of their time dealing with that, is that, you know, is that an equitable disbursement of our community and our resources? You know, I understand that, you know, we've had lots of gatherings and whatnot downtown. I mean, I want grandmas to feel safe go to their store. I want to not have to explain to my daughter, you know, there's a person that you have to jump over them to get to her dance studio downtown. You know, there is solutions. You know, what about the businesses that want to engage and assist? I mean, there's definitely options. There is vagrancy alarms. There is, you know, additional lighting that can be put in place. I mean, we want, you know, the businesses not to have to foot the bill. I mean, my office alone, we have had to add additional security. We've had our fences broken down twice for people stealing real estate sign to build housing out of or tents out of. I mean, you know, it's not okay for people to have to walk out and step over sharps and excrement. I mean, you know, it's nice that we have these who to call matrix, but I can tell you they have not been distributed to every business downtown. I ran around our whole block on Cedar Bay, and not every single one of those businesses have received that matrix of who to call. So I understand and I appreciate the community and the engagement that everybody wants to have and see a thoughtful solution between the homelessness, the vulnerable, the, you know, people that are in issues with mental health and addictions. But I mean, BC Housing, I respectfully understand that you have a prerequisites that you have to follow, but maybe it's time that we start looking for maybe not perfect, but something that will work and come to a thoughtful solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Tia. Wynan Van Staden. Sorry if I mispronounced that.
No worries. Hi, I'm Bernard van Staden. I live in Fruitvale, Kootenay Avenue, number 50. I'm representing a few parents that we have a few young kids. Specifically, I've got 2 young daughters, and we spend a lot of time in Trail, around the library, around the gymnastics area, and just to comment on Councillor Santori and Councillor Dobie and some of the other comments as well. The level of aggression from the people around there is very bad. I mean, picking up the kids from gymnastics, the amount of harassment that we go through, and this is 7-year-old girls, and it's just, you know, we carpool, so we've got 4 kids in the car, 4 or 5 kids. I mean, there must be an alternative solution to this. To comment on Donovan's note there with Brad, I mean, we knew Brad, we spent a lot of time with him. I was on a Crystal. So a lot of the people we know by name, because we've been here for 10 years now. But the last 2 years, it's really gone bad. And yeah, I do hope they can find a good solution, a alternate location, because the location where we are now, or where the sanctuary is now, it's not a good spot. Not a good spot for families or for the community. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Diana, go ahead.
Hi, my name's Diana Daghofer. I'm the co-chair of the Trail Community Action Team. And our purpose is to reduce the harms from drug use, both to people who use drugs and to our community as a whole. I first want to thank everybody who has come out today. I want to thank you for expressing your concerns. I think that our government needs to hear this. They need to hear the individual stories that are making people feel unsafe in their community. And I very much sympathize with you all and doing what I can to help be part of the solution. I just wanted to point out, Carol Doby, you talked about the cost to taxpayers. You mentioned the overdose prevention site and the cooling center. Both of those centers are operated by members of the community action team, and we get very little funding from government. The cooling center was operated entirely by volunteers. So just to point out that this is an all of community effort that we have to make. I want to talk a little bit about comments that people have made about enabling drug use. Things like providing needles, and Tammy touched on some of this already, but things like providing needles and providing counseling, these are all part of efforts to reduce harms and reduce costs associated with drug use. When the first overdose prevention site in Canada opened in Vancouver, it was very heavily evaluated. The Conservative government that came in after the Liberals that approved it wanted to shut it down. And the community as a whole rallied and pointed out through crime statistics and through their own experiences that once they had a safe, monitored place for people to use drugs, with trained medical professionals and counselors there, crime went down, needles on the street went down, people were far more likely to get into rehabilitation programs. I don't have the stats off the top of my head, but over half of them were involved in some sort of rehab after attending the program for several years. So although I know it's really, it's hard for people to see their dollars going towards what they see as destructive behavior, the work that you know, the public health approach to drug use is harm reduction. And we do that so that people can stay alive long enough to take advantage of some of these options. One of the people in council chambers talked about a study between San Francisco and San Diego. And I think it's really important when we take a look at what is effective and what's not effective, that we make sure that we look at the broad body of research that's been done. You know, we talk about trail not being unique. Certainly, every community in BC is dealing with it. Communities across Canada are dealing with it. It's an international problem. And because it's an international problem, we can look to other countries and see what solutions they've come up with. We can look to countries like Portugal, where they have decriminalized drugs and saw overdose deaths drop by 80%. We can look at, I'm not going to go through all of the data here, but my job before I retired was to do public health research. I pored over the studies and summarize them to help public health people develop programs and policies that were going to be effective. So this is something that I've been fortunate to continue to do in my volunteer work. There are solutions out there. I think part of the problem is that people have a moralistic view of drug use. It's something bad, and so we shouldn't contribute our tax dollars to it. But if you take a look at what really works, it's supporting people. There's a famous quote that the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's connection. People need to feel connected with each other. And that's why this community is so important to help create that sense. And I know it's really difficult to hear because you are suffering with you know, the horrible behaviors that come along with drug use. But I guess I would just ask you to please be patient, please try to show compassion, and please direct your energy to BC Housing and to the federal government and ask them to change our drug policies so that we have an opportunity to actually resolve this problem from the ground up. Thank you.
My name is Keith DeWitt. I live at 2400 Albert Drive, and I own a business at 1252 Bay Avenue. I share all the same concerns as any other downtown business owner. I won't go into all, you know, the concerns that I have. I think they've been expressed. In fact, both sides have been expressed at length. I had a question in regards to a comment that was made probably about an hour and a half ago. So I just thought I'd ask the question and leave it, you know, before council has to vote tonight. I have been working downtown for over 15 years. And I, like a lot of people, have seen a dramatic increase in the problems throughout the alleys in downtown over the past probably 3 to 4 years, which does kind of coincide with the temporary permit. So my question was, how long before that temporary permit, how long did CDS run under the previous permit, which allowed for just seasonal and nighttime use and only 8 beds? How long did that run for before this temporary permit went in? And was the center always downtown? So I'm not quite sure on those two issues on how long it ran before this temporary permit. I think a comment was made that if the temporary permit isn't extended, then we may have to suffer the consequences. I kind of feel like we are suffering the consequences of the temporary permit. So I think it's just if you're voting on options, you know, just to discuss basically how did it look before this permit was put in, and is that what it's going to look like again, and, you know, choosing between two options. So I'll leave it there.
Okay, thank you, Keith. So I just want to, for clarity, you know, we're going to finish off our public question period here. Then we're going to go into communications where we talk about council's going to have to decide on the motion, and we're going to have to vote on it. But I do want to ensure that BC Housing and Sheila from CDS have the opportunity to speak and to answer any questions within the next segment. So I just offer that as far as, you know, if there's any questions that have been advanced here that you think that is important for council and the community to know right now, BC Housing and CDS will have the opportunity to do that. And then we can go to council deliberations. So Mr. Brown, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much again. I just wanted to finish up by saying that I appreciate the compassion that's been expressed on both sides, especially the desire to, you know, for harm reduction, and I understand the cost of a life, and it's on both sides. We're not saying one thing is more important than the other. No way. So if you vote no, it's not because you don't have compassion. What I want to be at the forefront is how to address the issue. If you just keep handing out free fish, they just keep coming for more fish. I think the problem that we have to face is we need to stem the tide to stop it from becoming a worse problem. If we become a 5-star destination resort, they're all going to flock. And you think we have a problem now? You think the cost of one life is expensive now? How are we going to handle 20, 30, 40, 50? It's just going to double and triple in size, this problem. And that's my issue is let's look after the people we have. And we have done everything we could for these people in town. But now it's just, we're being overrun with an influx of new faces. And I'm concerned that if we just keep handing stuff out for free, there's no incentive for change. It's just inviting more problems. And it's gonna, like, you don't put a penitentiary downtown, you put it somewhere out of the way to keep children and families safe. So I guess that's really the issue is where to put this facility. We want to house people, but we don't want to house everybody in Vancouver in Trail. We can't do it. So, yeah, thank you for all that you guys are doing. I really appreciate it. But we do have to look after our families and our downtown businesses. Otherwise, we'll be a ghost town. Nobody's going to invest in downtown real estate. You think I want to buy another building? I'd love to, but I can't if it's going to be, I can't rent it out because of the issues downtown. So that's really got to be looked at. And thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, just last chance for anyone on Zoom here that's been elevated to speak. Okay, I'm just gonna close this off with BC Housing. Do you have any final comments before we get into 4.1?
Just say briefly, we appreciate all of the comments from council, from you, Mayor Paason, and from everybody who's attended this evening. We recognize that having a shelter in the community does create issues. We work closely in partnership with the communities in which we deliver this service. And we are committed to continuing that in Trail as well. You know, somebody mentioned the who to call, when to call information sheet needs to go around. I agree that's an important thing. We can circulate that again, and we can circulate it regularly so that people, you know, can get the support they need when there are issues. I can't say that we're going to solve all of the issues, but we can help to address them when they crop up. That's related to the interim shelter operations, and I've heard a few comments about the long-term relocation as well. Again, I think this is the same person raised this point. We're not looking for perfect. We are definitely open to examining any site. And the issue isn't that simply the province is unwilling to spend money in Trail. It just is a matter of finding the right site that will work. And unfortunately, the sites that have come up so far, for a number of reasons, not only price, for a number of reasons, those haven't followed through. But that doesn't mean that we're stopping working in Trail. We are continuing to investigate sites extremely diligently because we know that the city and the residents are going to be good partners. It's different when we're working in a municipality, you know, where we're constantly voted down and where, you know, the community does not want the new housing that we're building. It's different in Trail. We recognize that the community is a partner in the work that we're doing there, and we're sure that will continue as we look to a permanent supportive housing project in Trail.
Okay, thank you, Tyler. Rachel, just open it to you in case you have anything to say, and if you don't, that's okay too.
No, I will keep it short and sweet. I want to thank you all for having us here today. And I do want to note the exceptional job that Sheila and her team are doing at the shelter. This wouldn't be possible without a very dedicated, very educated, passionate team who really works hard to support some of our most vulnerable members in Trail. So thanks everyone for letting us know your thoughts and your feelings. And like Tyler said, nothing will ever be perfect, but we are working towards solutions and recognizing that, you know, we're not there yet, but collaboration with community partners and with the city, that's, you know, that's the route we have to take in order to be more successful in housing our folks here. So thank you so much again for having us.
Okay, thanks, Rachel. And CDS, Sheila, would you like to address?
I would just like to also thank the mayor and council and community for coming forward. And we recognize that there are issues, but I think that we're committed to provide the very basic needs for individuals, food, shelter, and safety, and working with other organizations to come up with a plan so people can get the support they need. But if the shelter isn't open, the individuals will be on the street, will be facing death uncertain times, and be in the community. So we're committed to keeping it open and providing very basic needs while we move forward in the plan for people to get help they need. So thank you everybody for attending and listening.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to move on then, leave the public question period and move on to communications. Item number 4.1, 1456 Bay Avenue, application for renewal of temporary use permit. And CAO McClure, I would like to turn the floor over to you to introduce this item from the staff report.
Okay. Well, we've had a great discussion tonight, and it is a difficult position that council is in, but these are the reasons that you're in the chairs is to think about outcomes, also to think of everyone. And we get that we've got a good group that has showed up here tonight, but we are a community of 7,500 people. We do have a good handful of people in chambers. We've got some that have joined us, certainly people that have brought forward distressing stories about people that are mental health and drug addiction, and it's tough on a community when you have these problems. Because sometimes, as I think one of the ladies said, no one wakes up today and says, I think I want to be a drug addict, and how does it feed into people that have mental illness and the combination of such. But for a community to have compassion, and even though people are acting in a way that makes no sense, because you are a person that doesn't have addictions or doesn't have mental health issues, of course it doesn't make sense. But when we have a committed group in the community that is willing to be an anchor, to be a lifesaver for certain people, even though their behavior is really challenging, I think council really needs to think good and hard. And I certainly respect that people are frustrated with the fact that we haven't been able to find a location here to move it out of the downtown. And I respect that some would say, well, I'm not taking the blame, and I get that, and that's fine that people don't have to take the blame. But I am concerned for council that if this was not to continue, there may be unintended consequences that you may be faced with, and maybe not. Maybe it all just goes away fine. It's my opinion that that's not what's going to happen. In fact, I think that you're going to see a huge spike and a huge issue, and I'm not here to convince you either way. I'm just saying the community they came from, these are all the same stories that people are dealing with, and it's extremely challenging because we've gone through a time of lockdown, people working hard on their businesses, trying to make their own money, trying to feed their families, and having to deal with individuals that are behaving poorly, not because they want to, but because that's where they're at in the state of drug addiction or mental health. It really leans on someone's compassion to a point where they can say that they've had enough. And I respect that completely. That being said, what you have before you today is an opportunity. You've got a provider that is at least providing shelter, food, security for very vulnerable people in our community. You currently have the backing of BC Housing, who is helping to fund that. The loss of those resources, as much as I think that people want to put their foot in the sand and say enough is enough, pull up your socks, I really wonder what that will look like if council is to say the shelter will not get any renewal. But I think that it's hard, because I can appreciate people saying on the evidence is like, well, wasn't this bad before? And now it's gotten worse, maybe because of the shelter. I guess I caution people with the thought a lot has happened over the last 4 years, whether or not that is COVID, whether it is, we heard today from a health professional about how much fentanyl is in the drugs, the other ingredients that they're adding to it, And unfortunately, that's what happens with addictions, is that even though you know that it may kill you, that is what you want. And it is a scourge in our society. And I know that people would like it just to go away, but that's not what's going to happen. And I just would have council really search what their thought processes are about having limited or no services for these individuals in our community, and what that will mean. And that's about all I have to say, Mayor. I don't envy the decision that council needs to make here, but as your CAO and working through the information, is there things that we can try to do better? Again, we've got some floodlighting, we've got some ideas on whether or not the fact sheet needs to come around more often. If there's things we need to work on, I think that that's where council should probably have their focus on, saying we're willing to go here, but we want to have an annual check-in. We want to see things that represented for whether it's safety or security or cleanup. We want to see more or a commitment to that. That would be my direction for council to be looking into, rather than a cold turkey. There is no shelter in the downtown, or a limited shelter. I just I caution you of that.
Okay. Ms. Lucchini, did you want to speak to the report at all?
Sorry, it takes me a minute to unmute the room.
No problem.
In what sense? Did you want me to go over a little bit more of the actual?
Yeah, I think, can you just go over like we usually do for every item, just the CAO corporate administrator goes over a broad sense the report and what's being advanced, and then the recommendation from staff if there is one, and then council weighs in and deliberates. Thank you.
Okay, I can do that for you. So Career Development Services was issued a temporary commercial use permit on September 27, 2021 to allow for the expansion of the shelter that operates within the premises at 1456 Bay Avenue from 8 beds to 18 beds. So in essence, 10 beds were added into the basement area of the property. A history of the development of the shelter to year-round operations is contained within council's reporting, and it has also been discussed here this evening. The permit was issued for 1 year in the hopes that BC Housing would secure a more permanent location to relocate the shelter where it would have less impact on the business community. The zoning bylaw does not currently include a definition of an emergency shelter, nor is an emergency shelter included as a permitted use in any of the zones contained within the zoning bylaw. If a permanent year-round homeless shelter is to be established in the community, it would be recommended that the zoning bylaw would require an amendment at that time to define this new use to allow transitional housing and emergency shelter as a permitted use. As stated tonight, BC Housing has been unable to secure an alternative long-term solution to relocate the shelter operations. At the time the permit was issued last September, council placed conditions associated with the expansion, which included priority placement to women and seniors, added security services, and enhanced daily cleanings of waste and discarded materials in the vicinity of the shelter. BC Housing then worked with the shelter operator, as well as in conjunction with city staff, to provide a wide range of measures to meet the conditions, which included a security outreach worker being made available 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. to provide support and supervision with the shelter guests and to provide resources for enhanced cleaning and de-escalation services. The temporary use permit is set to expire on September 30th, 2022. I think there was some mention that it was actually on the anniversary date, but it goes to the end of this month. In accordance with section 497(2) of the Local Government Act, a temporary commercial use permit may only be renewed once, and the renewal can be for up to 3 years. Council needs to consider the impact on the business community when considering the reissuance of this permit. If the application is denied, the property owner could have an opportunity to apply to rezone the property permanently. And this would involve revision to the zoning's bylaw in order to properly identify the shelter operations as a permitted use on a permanent basis. As per the legislative requirements, property owners within 50 meters of the property have been notified that council will consider authorizing the renewal of the permit this evening. Public notice was also advertised in the Trail Times. Written submissions, including those considered at the time the permit was issued last September, which included various outreach from some of the businesses in the vicinity. They were included in the reporting before council this evening. And as well, we've received two written submissions since publication of the agenda. And they have been one from the Downtown Trail Improvement Committee. And the second one, the second one was from the Trail Community Action Team, pardon me. And these written submissions that were provided after the agenda was prepared have been given to council for their consideration. And that's all I have, so.
Okay, I'm going to turn this over to council to start deliberations and discussion. Councillor Santori, you have your hand up first. Go ahead, please. And you're on mute.
Thank you, Mayor Payson. Speaking to the permit, I think first of all, it's important that we separate the two issues. And let me make it very clear that I personally am very understanding and compassionate to those people that have the challenges and the unfortunate position that they find themselves in, whether it be mental health or whether it be drug addiction or homelessness. And I don't think anyone on our council is suggesting for 1 minute that we don't need or want those services in town. And I think I can speak for every person that's in the council chambers now and the majority of people. Yeah, there are people that say put them on a bus and ship them away. Well, that's not going to happen. But it's all about the location of this place. And I guess the question would go back to BC Housing. I mean, what assurances do you have for this community that you will find a location over the next 6 months or a year? What's going to change? I don't see real estate prices dropping any. I think at minimum, they may say stagnant for a while. There are no other buildings that are being built to accommodate it. Has BC Housing looked at new construction in a different location? So this is a location issue. It's not about whether or not our community is behind helping these people. We get it. And I totally respect the position that the doctor, I can't remember the doctor's name, you know, yeah, these people are ill and they are suffering. But, you know, when people have a cancer or heart disease, they go into an institution to get fixed and to be taken care of. Unfortunately, if it wasn't for community services, these people, for the most part, being asked to fend for themselves. So, you know, I'm not going to support this location. I'm not going to support an extension to the permit. I will stay open-minded with respect to giving BC Housing an opportunity over the next 6 months to either identify a temporary facility or purchase a facility or maybe build a new facility somewhere else. But there are more stakeholders that are affected here than those that are suffering from their respective issues, be it drug addiction or homelessness or mental illness. You know, as a council, I think it's incumbent upon us to speak on behalf of the community as a whole. And that, because we do that, is not showing a lack of compassion for those individuals. This is a location issue. It's not whether or not these people deserve services. Absolutely. We want to see them eat 3 square meals a day. We want them to get the treatment that they want. But I think, then I've said it earlier, I think BC Housing or the ministry has let us down in terms of the time frame in which they were supposed to do this. How much longer are we going to wait? 1 year, 2, 3? What happens if we're going to find ourselves making it a permanent location because we can only extend this once? So in 3 years, if BC Housing has not identified a suitable location, then it could be there for who knows. So maybe we should ask BC Housing to put the pedal to the metal on this. And maybe by November, we can come to some resolve. And I think most of council would then extend it when we have a fixed date that gives the community some assurance that there's going to be a different location. But right now we're approving something with totally unknown, absolutely unknown in terms of where a new location is going to be. And we may find ourselves in the same position in 3 years. So let's put some heat on BC Housing. And again, the representatives from BC Housing, don't take this personally. I know you're doing your job and it's not an easy one, but I can't support this permit extension at this time.
Councillor Kashoni, go ahead.
I will not be supporting the extension at this time. Also, I think that it's a real mistake for our city, but I wish somebody would make a motion so we could speak to the motion. And you don't want to make a negative motion. So if somebody wants 3 years, then they should make the motion for 3, or if they want 2 or 1, whatever it happens to be. Thank you.
Would someone else from council like to speak?
Well, I think we should get a motion on the table here, but with limitations or conditions.
Well, if you're comfortable doing that, Councillor Butler, then I suggest you or someone else do that.
And why don't we
as
put
per process?
Then why don't we put a motion on the table for either thinking a deferment or a 1 year with a review in 6 months' time by council from BC Housing, where they're at. A combination of the 2 comments.
Councillor Santori?
I don't think we can do that, and I'll refer back to either Sandy Lucchini or our CAO. If we extend it for a year, or once we've extended it, we cannot extend it again in a year. It will become permanent. Just so we.
If we shorten the timeline, we're not able to do that.
What's that?
If we shorten the timeline, we're not able to do that.
If we extend it, correct me if I'm wrong, Colin, but if we extend it for a year and things still don't pan out, then we cannot extend it again. It will become a permanent.
It won't become, it'll just be, it'll take away something out of your toolkit. If you're wanting to have the shelter, then you would have to
rezone.
Look at rezone.
Right. So it could be,
yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. But that's why I think that we had looked at it on the flexibility and understanding, as you're saying, Councillor Santori, to have BC Housing have some results. I mean, they're working on it. And, our hope is, and the expectation is we've got irons in the fire, and that we'll have some results. It hasn't been positive, and I appreciate you've been at the group team has been at the table for a while here and has heard that before. And I get that.
If that's the case, then if I may make a motion to defer, or if I can do that at this time, well, November is just around the corner. Now I'll withdraw that idea and I'll listen to the rest of council.
Yeah, and I think that's, again, just to reiterate, I think the idea being that with the three years with an opportunity to have it looked at to see whether or not there is either recommendations or a report back to council on an annual basis of the results or challenges or things that they want to see done because they're not, they're getting more feedback. That's
so a motion then for a 3-year extension with a review after 1 year.
I'll second it. Okay, Councillor Butler, Councillor Jones. I would just think that after 1 year, I think it should be after the first year, the second year, and the third year. you know, so there's no stopgap. But for me, I just want to say that I don't want to give the impression to the community or CDS and BC Housing, if this would pass, that one annual review is okay. It is not, and it is not enough. So I think as council, we need to think, do we, if it is the will of council to advance this, to buy us some time, do we want BC Housing and CDS to give us monthly updates, not only on what is happening with land development and procurement, but also operationally with the shelter? What's working, what's not working? Do we need to implement more security? Do we need to implement more lighting? Whatever that looks like. I don't want to give the impression that with this motion, the only reporting that is back to this city is once a year we hear from you. We still need monthly reporting or quarterly reporting. Councillor Kashoni first, and then Councillor Santori second.
Well, I find that motion really interesting because the committee, DTIC, recommended in their letter there, recommended the most 1 year and even as low as 6 months. So I don't know where this came from Councillor Butler, who is a member of the committee, KSCU branch manager. And I am reading that this is deemed an extension of a temporary permit. We also ask the city consider a shorter duration permit of either 6 months or 1 year. That's the letter they wrote. Now
so I'm just going to stop. No, I'm going to stop this because the way you're approaching Councillor Butler on this, he is a council liaison to this committee. Yes, his name was put on that letter, and I'll say I think it's inappropriate that his name was put on the letter. He is their liaison, but what is also inappropriate is you attacking a fellow councillor member in this fashion. A motion was put forward. You have the opportunity to vote against it, but to attack him in a public forum is not okay.
Nobody's attacking anybody. I'm just making a comment. I'm reading from the thing.
No, it's fair enough, and I think it's important to remember those were I think it's important to remember, Councillor Kashoni, that those
okay,
were
one person speaking, please.
I had the floor, so I was taking the position that it's 1 year or 6 months. That's.
I think Councillor Kashoni, I think it was me that spoke about a motion to have the 3 years with flexibility to have some teeth to it. So it's my kind of motion that I brought forward that I think Councillor Butler was saying, okay, I think I can work with that, or how do we work with that? And it was then kind of added on like, well, let's have additional reporting. So that was my suggestion, no one else's, that I had kind of brought forward because you were discussing it. I just believe it allows for the most flexibility for council and allows BC Housing time to find a location.
So Councillor Santori, you're next. Then I'm going to go Councillor Butler, if your hand was still up, and then Councillor Jones.
Yeah, Colin, I'm just a little confused with respect to what flexibility it gives us, because if we extend the permit for 3 years with a review each year, regardless of
you could rescind. There could be after a year, it could be this is not working and we're not getting the results.
Oh, okay, that's what I want. Okay, so I thought that once you've given them the 3 years, you're locked in for the 3. Oh, so there is an avenue whereby it can be rescinded in a year.
Well, we would look at that. We would want to have, we would want to give opportunity for improvement.
No, but so just so I have this straight and the community has it straight, we would actually accomplish the same thing as giving them a 1 year extension. We're just not we're giving them up to 3, but if we don't see progress in 9 months, within a year, we can absolve the permit. Is that correct?
That is my understanding.
I think it's important that we have that for sure, because if you're certain of that, that's fine. I just want to make sure that we don't find ourselves in a position where there is no progress being made. And, too bad, so sad, we're going to keep trying. And then here we are 3 years later, and we're still in the same position.
Yes. Understood.
Two things.
Okay, Councillor Butler, go ahead.
The two things, I think we have to have a clear understanding of that, Mr. McClure.
Okay.
before we make any decision. And secondly, to Councillor Kashoni, I do apologize. I believe those were recommendations and not of the committee that were being put forth to council, and not a do it or don't do it. But I think they were trying to work towards the best sort of outcome for the community as a whole. So apologies if that was miscommunicated. No
Okay,
problem. Sorry.
Councillor Jones, you're next.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Payson. So I am following Councillor Santori request for more information. I'm a little bit concerned based on the report that we have in front of us tonight. It's concerning that when I read it, it says that we are allowed for one renewal of up to 3 years. So if we take this time now to make a position of a 1-year term, after 1 year, we'll look at it again. We have no opportunity to renew it again for temporary housing. It goes to rezoning for permanent housing. So there's
That's
no
correct.
opportunity. So I think that because there's no chance that we're going to get a shelter built or moved or, rezoned or whatever we have to do in a year. It's not going to happen. We know that it would be exciting if it would. I mean, because we know that that's our goal, to get permanent housing and support for the vulnerable population. But really a year, it doesn't seem doable. But I understand that the 3 years does give us the ability to find and build something if it's out there. But we also have to make sure that BC Housing is committed to supporting this proposal that we're putting forward. Like, we need them to start coming to this community with some deliverables. And that's not happening. And our community is suffering with that. It is really suffering. And I just, if we can make an amendment to, or if you could, Sandy could read back the motion that Councillor Santori put forward, I would make an amendment to it if necessary. But it's going to be difficult to support something that I don't feel I've been given enough opportunity to do it. And we have a community that we are representing right now. And I'm not comfortable making any motions or moving this forward until we have the information that we need to get it right. And we have to get it right. We only get one chance, because after this first renewal, we don't get another chance. It goes permanent.
Correct. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Kashoni?
Well, I guess this is at the time when you want to get a legal opinion, because if you renew it for 3 years, I don't think you're able to go after 1 year and say, hey, we're not happy. So if the motion is to renew it for 3 years, I think you're stuck with 3 years. So, as much as confidence I have in administration with Colin and Sandy, I'm not sure that they're absolutely right. To me, reading it and my understanding of it is that once you approve 3 years, it's 3 years and that's it. So that'll make 6 years that we've been looking for this. And then to me, if you go for 3 years, I think you're going to probably be looking at 6 years before they build anything, because I think the government's going to say, well, gee, they got a 3-year extension now, down where it is. We don't need to build anything now. They've got 3 years. So I think you should be looking at a legal opinion to myself to sort this out.
Councillor, I'm just going to give staff a little bit of time to process that. Councillor Dobie, go ahead.
Okay, I had said earlier, based on where I stood last year, and that was mainly in support of the businesses in the area. And again, I made it very clear that I have every bit of empathy for the vulnerable people and the homeless people that are in this situation. But I want to speak based on our experience with BC Housing. A lot of times when they would come to meetings and they'd indicate we'd hear back from them in a month, 2 months, 3 months, we'd never hear. And then even when we'd send a letter, it would sometimes it'd be 6 weeks, 2 months again before we'd ever hear from them. So my faith and my hopefulness that I would like to place in BC Housing is almost non-existent. And I really feel that if we agree to the 3-year, that they're going to take a very laid back position, that we don't have to worry about trail. They're secure for 3 years. They've extended this 3-year option. And so we've got the temporary housing locked in with 18 beds for 3 years. And that's not what I'm looking for the downtown businesses.
Okay, was there another counselor who wants to speak? Counselor Jones?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So I guess what I want to do, I mean, Councillor Kashoni, I need to correct you because you know what? Council has been going at this for I can remember we've been council before me and council now. I've been here 4 years. You guys had at least 2 terms before me where you have been struggling to get shelter or, sorry, you guys, it's late but where we've been struggling to find accommodation for these, the vulnerable population. This is something that we've been struggling for years. I feel that this is the closest we've gotten to BC Housing, even participating with us, having an opportunity to present us with a spot. And right now it's a temporary shelter. We're trying to find something permanent out of town for this population. I'm telling you, if we don't show that we're being flexible, that we're willing to continue to do the work that we have to do, and that's not just sitting at city councils and having this discussion. We have to get aggressive with lobbying the provincial government, the federal government, anything that we can do to get recognition for the crisis that is in our community right now. We have to do it. This 3 years gives us the ability to do something. If we settle for a year, you guys, we're in trouble because after a year, we've got 18 more people on the street. And that's not including the ones that are, living in the forest or living on the street actually, that are going to struggle for support. Like, we're in dire needs for something here. We're in a sad situation. I honestly believe that the 3-year extension is what we need to do at this point. We need more information. We need more information before we can settle on it. But I don't see us going in any other.
Councillor Santori, go ahead. You're mute. You're on mute.
If appropriate at this time, I would really like to hear from BC Housing with respect to this question. First of all, let's not assume that because we build a facility or purchase a facility that is a panacea that is going to eliminate the drug problem or give them easier access to addiction services. There will always be, when I'm speaking from experience, and you can see it on the news, the city of Vancouver, they bought the Woodwards building, they bought hotels, they have spent hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars on housing. Many, unfortunately, will not be suitable for that housing, will choose not to take advantage of that housing, or will be thrown out of that housing because of continued drug abuse or behavioral problems. Now, I'm speaking from what I've experienced. I may be, if I'm wrong, please correct me. So let's not mislead the community that the construction of or the relocation of this place is going to eliminate totally what you see in the downtown core. Will it help? Absolutely. But let's not kid ourselves or the community that this is a silver bullet. It still will continue, hopefully not to the degree that we're experiencing today. So let's be clear and upfront with the public that, look, this is not a panacea. It's part of the solution. For those people that are on the border that can be rehabilitated and helped. There will those that either choose not to be helped, or I'm not a doctor, but beyond help. So let's be very clear on what we're setting out to accomplish here. But I do agree with Colleen. I think we need to put some pressure on our MLA to help us out. And I'm sure Katrine will do a good job for us, and she will go to bat. She may not get the results, but it's one more voice at a different level, and she is a cabinet minister that might get the ear of the decision makers and the Ministry of Social Services. So I like that approach. As far as the feds are concerned, Colleen, we could try, but I think we're barking up a tree that it doesn't exist. But anyways, yeah, I just want to be, let's be honest with people. There's a worldwide problem with it, and the construction of a supportive housing is not the be all end all.
BC Housing, did you want to respond to that? Because Councillor Santori kind of started it with wanting you to answer his question.
I just want to make sure that my assessment is accurate.
I mean, as I said in my presentation, the causes of homelessness are varied. There's a whole host of them. And BC Housing's mandate is to provide housing, not to solve the addiction and tainted drug supply and mental health crisis that as you say, is affecting communities across Canada. So I agree with what you're saying. You know, we are able to provide a supportive housing project in the community, which will get people off the streets. And that's what we can do.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and I think that confirms that what we've been doing and asking people with our lobbying approach is that it's a multi-ministry lobbying approach that is required, because each ministry has different areas of expertise that they're taking care of, whether it's harm reduction, housing, mental health support, substance use. Councillor Jones, go ahead.
So I'm wondering if we need to make a motion of some sort to get more information on this before we vote on it.
We have a motion on the floor, though.
There is a motion on the floor for more information?
Oh, I thought I might be wrong, sorry. I thought staff was looking into it right now.
And
on the floor.
So has the motion been first and seconded, though? And what is that motion? Ms. Lucchini?
Mayor Payson, I wasn't able to record the motion. There was a small level of commotion up here with people leaving. And I didn't actually hear who made the motion. There were several sort of half motions made that weren't seconded. So I'm looking for some input from council on that. I have that, I made notes that Councillor Butler mentioned something about a renewal for a 3-year term with annual presentations. I did write down that Councillor Jones might have seconded that. Sorry, it's getting long into the night here.
Just point of information, it was moved by Councillor Butler, seconded by Councillor Jones, that the extension be for 3 years with a review after 1 year.
That's what I thought.
Exactly.
Okay, that's what I had written down then.
Yeah, and then I advanced, do we want that review to stop at year 1, or do we want to continue the review year 2, 3, and then put more frequent check-in reviews as well, quarterly or monthly?
Mayor,
Councillor Santori.
I think we need some certainty around.
Yeah, we're having a difficult time hearing.
No, my question is, my point is, we still need some certainty as to our ability to take action in a year or not. And I think Colin had some confidence about it, but I sensed a little bit of, well, I'm pretty sure. And I don't want to make a decision until we know exactly what we can and cannot do if we were to extend this for 3 years, and whether or not we would have the ability to change our minds a year from now.
Yeah, no, it's great. And so what I have found out here is that the Local Government Act does not give the right to revoke a permit. However, the municipality may choose to take legal action to restrain a property owner from carrying on the temporary use until conditions of the permit are complied with. So again, too, as we talk about, there's a yeah, not that you want to get there, but there seems to be, again, there isn't an actual line in the Local Government Act that says you may revoke it, but there seems to be tools here that the municipality can undertake to have the property owner that's using the temporary use to comply with conditions.
If I may, in this regard, we don't have a property owner. Now, if we can put conditions on BC Housing, then that's a different issue. Whether or not we can put conditions on BC Housing, and if they were not able to meet those conditions, would we be able to revoke it? I understand with respect to a business that wants a temporary permit, but we're talking about arm's length from government, being BC Housing. So can we put restrictions and conditions on this well, it's not even them, it's Career Services Development. So I'm at a loss.
Yeah.
I really am. And I don't mean to put you on the spot, Colin. It is complicated, but I think for council's benefit, I mean, it would be great if we could settle this tonight, but until such time as all of council members have a comfort level in terms of what authority we have, I would not feel comfortable proceeding at this time. I mean, my position probably won't change, but I think for the benefit of all of council.
Just point of information, I mentioned getting a legal opinion.
Yep.
And I think that's what we should do.
Yeah.
So is the recommendation then going to be, are we, because the first motion was moved and seconded for a 3-year with an annual review, we haven't gone to a vote. Do we need to table that motion, vote on a table, and then vote for a legal review? So we can come back and visit that motion once we have information from a legal review and we know exactly where we stand. Is that the appropriate process? Okay. Staff, do you have anything to add to that?
I don't. We'll get on it tomorrow with getting, again, with some of these government acts, they don't spell exactly everything out that you would like them to as well. I think that there is tools here for us to do what we think that we can do, but I can certainly appreciate council's concern about moving forward with something without having that opinion right in front of them. I do respect that completely.
And if I may, I'm sorry. I'm
sorry.
Speaking.
Go ahead, and then Councillor Dobie's hand is up.
Sorry, I'm speaking up too much, but this is a usual. Just so council is aware that even if we do have the tools, and BC Housing within 8 months to 9 months either finds or decides to build a building, then you're going to be forced to, council is going to be forced then to extend this permit until such time as they've done their renovations or their construction. So it could be 2 to 3 years at that location. Just keep that in the back of your mind when it comes back to council.
Fair point.
But I don't think we can extend, if we extend it, we can't, I don't think we can extend it again. Then we'd be getting into a permanent use at that location.
No, but what I meant is if we agree to the 3 years, but we have an avenue to get out. So let's say we do, or let's say a year from now, BC Housing says, look, we found a location and we're going to start construction or renovations. It could be another year, or if they build a new building, it could be another 2. So as long as we're aware that it's not just 1 year, the extension, it's 1 year or 3 years, could be less, but then you have to take into account the time to build it or renovate it or whatever.
Yeah, I understand what you said, but my understanding is hypothetically, if we go 3 years, after 3 years, this is our last renewal. So either there's going to be a place that's built within 3 years, that we can move into, or we're going to have to do a permanent use of the shelter where it is. I think we'd have to get another legal opinion on what are we doing in this gap period where, BC Housing, yes, they're committed and we're in the build, but our temporary use permit is now expired. What do we do when the legislation says you can't renew another temporary use permit?
Yep.
So, I mean, even like 3 years, we're in COVID and building is terribly expensive and it's terribly slow. But even with a 3 year, I feel that there is a motivation piece still there with BC Housing, because I don't know what happens after 3 years. Council is going to be in a brutal position to approve that shelter in that permanently in that downtown core. And if you don't, then you have absolutely no shelter.
Or we can make it, if it's allowed, if one of the conditions are that if they have not identified a place within a year, they have to find a temporary location. So in year 2, if they still haven't found a temporary location, then we can revoke it after year 2 and not be put in a position to extend the permit or to make the zoning change permanent. But that's what we've got to find out.
Yeah, and I think that comes to how much of this is legislatively bound and how much is something that we have to embed in a motion so that we are crystal clear on the stopgaps that we as a council and community have in place if another location is not identified or if the build is slow.
But that's why we need the tabling motion.
Yeah, Councillor Dobie, your hand is up.
You know what? I've been waiting here for so long, I kind of lost track of some of my thoughts. So bypass me for a minute and let me rethink this. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, Carol.
Councillor Kashoni, go ahead.
Well, that's why you need a legal opinion. You not only have to have an opinion on the local government act on the charter, but you have to have an opinion, a legal opinion on whether or not what you can and can't do and what the parameters are. So it may be an expensive little operation, but it's well worth the money so that everybody knows exactly what they can and can't do. At the end of 3 years, you could simply shut it down, and hopefully by that time, BC Housing would have found a place and renovated it and done everything else. But right now, to make this decision now, you need to have a concrete legal opinion so everybody knows exactly what can be done, because otherwise you're flying blind. Thank you.
Okay, so a motion was put on the table, moved by Councillor Butler, seconded by Councillor Jones, I believe, if that's accurate, to do a 3-year extension with a review at year 1. So we are going to move to table that motion. So do I have someone who wishes to make a motion?
To table that motion until such time as staff has had an opportunity to either seek legal advice or whatever avenue they feel is necessary in order for us to understand what what's the word I'm looking for?
What options we have?
What options or what authorities we have in terms of the extension to 3 years, something along that.
Okay, so staff can work with that. And Councillor Kashoni, you're seconding that motion?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, let's go for a vote. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Councillor Dobie, did you have your hand up there?
Yes, okay.
You did, okay, thank you. Your light's a little bit dim there. It's hard for me to see.
I don't know what to do about it. It's getting dark outside. So in reality, we may not get a decision on this until close to the end of year 3. And it could be, yes, we found a place, we're purchasing it, and it's going to be 8 to 12 months before it's livable. So we have to consider the fact that this could be another 4 years away.
Yeah.
Okay, this is what we're asking the city to live with then, and the residents and the citizens, is another 4 years of issues.
No, we haven't made that decision yet, Carol. We're just getting
No,
info.
but what I'm saying, if that vote goes through, Councillor Santori.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to make a point here. Yes. Okay.
Well, we may be asking the council or the city to live with the issues without a shelter. too, or with a shelter that just works 10 hours a day. I mean, we're kind of beating the same drum here, but I just, this isn't popular for me to say, but I just want everyone to know, like, we are not going to get rid and completely eliminate homelessness in this community. No. People who are homeless have free will. They can move between communities. They move between Trail, Castlegar, Nelson, other areas. You can't force them to live in a supportive housing complex. You can't force them to not live in tents. You can't force them to use shelter services. We live in Canada, there is free will. And so with that in mind we are not going to be able to and you also can't ship them off to facilities without having their consent. And even if they do go to a facility as adults, and as long as they're not harming themselves, they can check themselves out of the facility. So there's a lot of mushy area here where, we are not empowered to force change in this or make change. So, we either work with the system we have, or we put up some really hard stopgaps, but we are not going to get rid of homelessness. And I truly believe, and I've let everyone do most of the speaking tonight, but I am very comfortable saying, if we do not extend this use, we are going to have people on the street without food for a portion of the day when they had it. And your basics of living are food, clothing, and shelter. So I believe that the vandalism and the theft at the stores, just for food or for items to sell so they can buy food, is going to increase. Being able to provide people with the very, very basics of nutrition is so important to keep them physically safe and to help our business community. So we're going to go for a legal opinion. That's great. I really commend everyone for a very robust and difficult discussion tonight. And I want to also commend people for sharing their personal stories. That's difficult in front of an audience to expose your vulnerabilities. And it's also difficult for council to have such vast, opposing opinions on where do we go. And we all know it's a majority vote. So I just want to make sure from a process perspective that we have the motion where we need it to be, and we can now go for a vote, and staff is going to have what they need to bring this forward.
One quick question. We won't wait until our next meeting. We will call a meeting once we get the answers. Colin McClure.
That would be my expectation, Councillor Dobie, that we would have a special meeting. There's some work to be done here. I've checked out a few things. So, well, I want to bring it forward in a timely fashion so that there isn't pressure. In the same time, and I think that's, people have talked about location. I'll also be in conversation with BC Housing on, are there, as we heard from BC Housing earlier, saying they've worked with staff, there could be other temporary locations. Maybe not in the downtown, and what property does the city have that would allow for that? So those are some other conversations we may have to take if there is a concern about this particular location. Those are other options. But again, there will be likely concern about wherever we find a place. So I mean, so that, just to be clear of that, but there's certainly, again, I've heard from council as well that there's a definite compassion for what's happening here. There is concerns about location, and we will investigate that as well.
Okay, so we have the motion, tabling motion moved and seconded. All in favor? Against, if any? Councillor Dobie, were you against? I think you were just delayed. No, you weren't. Okay, so carried unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your patience, council.
Yep, and the public for sure. Okay, so let's move quickly through this now. We're 3 hours and 20 minutes at this meeting. Thank you. 4.2 hazardous condition for 86 Rossland Avenue. Ms. Lucchini, over to you.
Okay, hold on. Okay. 46 Rossland Avenue. The property owner at 46 86 Wellesley, Mr. Casey Vermole, has commenced construction of a rooftop patio on the premises without the benefit of a building permit. The city was contacted last week by a building official who indicated he was quite concerned with the construction and that there was danger to both individuals who may be on the roof because of the guardrail that's currently in place, and to members of the public should the metal building materials that are being used for the fence fall to the ground. A stop work order was placed by the RDKB building official on Wednesday, August 10th. Some correspondence was received from Mr. Vermole today and was provided to council for your review. Although he has indicated he contacted City Hall and was informed that a building permit is not required for a fence, which is true if the fence is being built from the ground. The construction he is building on the top of his property is clearly not the addition of a fence, and is a change in occupancy to the principal dwelling that would trigger the requirement for a building permit. Mr. Vermole provided with his letter today information that he has applied for a building permit. Despite this information being received, it is recommended that council pass a resolution that the construction be halted and materials removed within 7 days, given the inherent risk to the public, because we do not know how long the building permitting process would take. I don't believe the turnaround time is as fast as 7 days. So the building official was quite concerned with the metal material being used up on top of that building.
Sorry, the recommendation is in front of you. Do I have someone to make the recommendation? Or are we opening this up for discussion? Councillor Butler, you're on mute, so if you're speaking.
I'll move approval.
Okay, Councillor Kashoni, thank you. And Councillor Doby, you had your hand up. Were you,
I was
were,
just
are
gonna
you,
say the same thing, yeah.
you're going to do the same thing? Okay, so we'll let you move, second that motion.
Yep.
Okay, does anyone want to make a comment or question about this or statement?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, all in favor? Against, if any? Carried. I just want to make a note to staff too. I mean, I know we've talked a lot about the really poor acoustics with council chambers, but we either need to get Ms. Lucchini a headset or something, because her voice is really tinny coming through and it's very difficult to hear. So we need to maybe work on that too.
Couple of headsets in the budget. We'll get it done.
Yeah, thank you. So 4.3, Tee It Up Virtual Golf Application for Liquor Primary License. Ms. Lucchini, I'll turn that over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Tee It Up Virtual Golf is a new business in downtown Trail located at 1402 Bay Avenue. The business owner, Mr. David Driuti, has applied to the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch for a liquor primary license to be operated on the premises. As part of the application the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch is required to request notice and opportunity for local government input on new licenses. As part of the virtual golf simulator experience, the business owner would like to offer alcoholic beverages with a capacity of 10 patrons at a time. Although the application indicates liquor sales between 3 and 10, the applicant has since indicated he has requested an amendment to the hours of operation with the application to be between 10 a.m. and 10 p.m., which are standard hours for a liquor license, as he intends to have expanded hours of operation in the winter months when outdoor golfing opportunities are not available. The property is zoned General Commercial Zone C1, which allows for eating and drinking establishments. A letter dated August 3rd outlining the application was sent to all property owners within 50 meters seeking input on any impact the license may have. We received no responses in opposition to the issuance of a liquor license at this property. It is therefore recommended that council pass the following resolution. Trail City Council has considered the following: the location of the establishment, the person capacity and hours of liquor service of the establishment, council's comments on the prescribed, the impact of noise on nearby residents. The potential for noise should not increase as a result of proposed operations. The establishment is located in the downtown core with limited residential development nearby. The potential for noise that would disturb the peace and quiet of neighboring residents is therefore expected to be negligible. The impact on the community if the application is approved. The licensed area would permit the sale of alcoholic beverages along with non-alcoholic beverages with a capacity of 10 persons. It is located in the city's downtown core and is suitable for such an endorsement. If the application is approved, the impact on the community is expected to be positive in that it will enhance services at a social venue for residents and visitors, support growth in tourism, and create jobs. Council's comments on the views of residents are as follows. The views of residents within 50 meters of the proposed establishment were sought using a direct mail out. A total of 45 letters were sent to nearby businesses and property owners with no responses received in opposition. Council believes the property owners in the area support the issuance of the license. Trail City Council recommends the issuance of the liquor primary license for the following reasons. The establishment will positively impact the community by enhancing a social venue for residents and visitors, supporting growth in tourism and creating jobs. The establishment should not result in an increase in criminal activity in the area, nor result in an increase in damage to public and private property in the vicinity. The hours of liquor service as proposed from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. daily is supported. The impact on police resources is expected to be negligible. Traffic is not considered to be an issue in the area. The street parking in the area is sufficient to satisfy customer demand. The zoning of the property allows accessory uses as an eating and drinking establishment as a permitted use.
So
Okay,
I'll move the
that was a mouthful. Thank you, Councillor Jones, for moving that recommendation. And do I have someone to second that recommendation? Councillor Santee Santori, thank you very much. Any questions or comments on this motion? Councillor Dobie, go ahead.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly. So with the issuance of the liquor license, and I have no problem with that, that means people don't have to go in there to do virtual golf. They can just stop in and have a drink, correct? It doesn't mean that the liquor license is tied just to virtual golfers?
No.
Well, I believe that's what people would be going with. It's got a very low person capacity. So there, my understanding is there's 2 golf simulator machines.
Yeah,
And
there's a seating capacity of 10 people. But if somebody goes there and let's say it's all quiet and there's nobody in there, there's nothing to stop anybody from going in, sitting down in the open capacity and having a drink. We have no no restrictions on that liquor license, right?
That's correct.
Okay, I mean, I'm expecting it's going to be mostly the users of the virtual golf, but there is that option since he is a licensed establishment.
They can't go in without an appointment.
Okay, at this point in time, the business is being operated by appointment only. It's sort of doing a soft launch right now, so you can't just walk in off the street.
Okay.
The times have to be pre-booked, if I may clarify.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited about this. I think it's a great addition to Downtown Trail. I really do.
I agree, but I just felt that I wanted some clarification. I mean, I know this is a soft launch, but once you get that soft launch period passed, anybody can go in there, right?
In theory,
Yeah.
but it would be sort of, I'm not sure. That would be that's not what the benefit of his business is. He wants people to be playing golf in there. Now again, he might
right.
make some money on
I
drinks, but
agree.
yeah,
And I think as the operator owner of that, he can say, look, if you're not golfing, I'm not serving liquor.
could be.
But he could have that option. Who knows?
Yeah. But I
Okay.
think right now the benefit of the business is to know that someone's going to be there, because I don't think he probably wants to have someone sitting there all day waiting for someone to walk in just to have a drink. I think he wants to set it up so that if he's got a number of sessions of golfers coming in, that he can also provide them with a or alcoholic drink or non-alcoholic for that matter.
I agree. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on this matter? It's been moved and seconded. Seeing nothing. Okay, all in favor? Against, if any? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, item 4.4, seniors residential tax options, and CAO McClure. This was a late addition, so turn the floor over to you.
Yeah, thank you. So there was a question raised at our last council meeting in regards to an additional homeowner grant for seniors that live below the poverty line, and that would be at $32,000 income. And it's true, there is an option for that. However, there is a very large caveat to that, and it has to be that if you are a senior and you have a family net income of under $32,000, if your home is valued at over $1.975 million, then you can claim this additional grant. We don't see that as something that is happening here in the Trail area. What we really suspect this is that someone's had a home maybe in Kerrisdale or maybe in different parts of Vancouver, and they've lived there for a long period of time, and they're maybe getting a small pension, and this would allow them to defer the fact that housing prices have gone up so high, especially in the last number of years, that they would be able to get a break on their homeowner grant. It is important, though, that as a senior, and again, it's always up to the individual to make their claim, and there is an additional claim over and above. So the regular homeowner grant that is offered by the province is $770. Now, if you are a senior, you get to claim an additional amount, and that is $245. So if you are a senior, and again, it's up to the owner of the home to go in and claim their homeowner grant, because the province has now made that something that you need to do online with them, or is that you can get a homeowner grant of $1,045, and that is available to any senior in our area. As a note, one of the thresholds again of the 1.975 is that if you are a senior that's having above the $32,000 income and your home is also over the 1.975 million, not that we have any of that here in Trail, they actually start to claw back your homeowner grant if your house is over that amount and you're making that much money. That's just something else. So it can be very confusing when you are reading on the website as to these homeowner grants, the way that it is presented on the website for the ministry. It does really give you a sense that that there could be an additional homeowner grant and that there's something else going on here. But as you get into the detail, there's some catches to it. But again, for seniors, you are able to claim an additional $245 as a senior on your homeowner grant when you go online for the province. And that's available to all seniors. And again, it's up to whoever's filling out the form to claim it as a senior, because the province doesn't know if you've lived in the home, doesn't know what age group you are. Again, there is always a form that you need to sign off on, in a sense, or hit the X boxes and then, say that you comply with the restrictions. So if you're claiming a senior's homeowner grant and you're not a senior, you run the risk of getting caught for that, and that obviously has penalties. The other thing that I thought was important just to talk about seniors, because we know that we're not Vancouver, but when you have an average increase of 28% like we've had here in Trail, there definitely is a pressure that can come with additional homeowner prices, and that can be a reflection, depending on where you sit in the assessed value chain, to have an increase to your taxes. And that's why the province has been very clear that if you're a senior, and what I find interesting is that as a senior, they classify 55 years and older, you can defer your taxes. That's I don't know. As far as numbers go, I don't like the idea of a senior being at 55. So just saying that. But you have to own your home. You have to have certain equity in it. You must apply for that each year. Costs you about $60. But the big piece for it is that if your house has increased in value significantly and you're allowed to stay in the home and you've got sort of a set income, maybe a pension income, this allows you to take the benefit of that large increase in your assessed value, meaning that in theory the selling price in a number of years would be certainly higher than any kind of a deferral of your taxes. And the one component that I thought is really important for the public to know and council to know is that it's the interest component that is really a benefit to the seniors. So it's not like some of the other ones where they're having a prime +2 or those sorts of things on, they're making money on the interest. So there's like, yes, defer your taxes so that, you know, we can make interest income. They only set the rates twice a year, and under the seniors regular program, you're charged a simple interest. So it's not compounding. So it's a simple interest, which I think is important. And it is not greater than 2% below the prime rate of our principal banker. So that's a very good interest rate that you would be getting to be able to defer. I get, because that can be sometimes, I think, a concern. It's like, well, why would I do that if I could, you know, earn more on my bank account if I, if I save the money, or they're going to make money off me. They're actually making it something that is a benefit to seniors. If that is a challenge for cash flow for a senior who has had a large increase in their assessed value. I don't know if council has any questions about that, or if that makes any more clarity, but I just thought that was one thing that was asked about, and I thought it was important for not only council to hear, but the public, in case they've got any questions about that.
Okay, any questions from council on this? No, and no motion, and it was just receipt for information as a follow-up question. Ms. Lucchini, I just want to just make sure that you know that Councillor Kashoni's dropped off the meeting, so our quorum has changed now, and I'm not quite sure when that happened, if it was at the last vote, but I definitely know for 4.4, he is not with us.
He left the road at 9:30. He's not feeling well.
Okay, that's fine.
Councillor Jones, sorry, Mayor, Councillor Jones.
Go ahead,
I
Councillor
know,
Jones.
I was concerned because I saw that Robert left as well, and we have that bylaw coming up, that zoning bylaw coming up that I don't believe that Sandy, Councillor Santori and I can be on.
No, and that was a concern that I brought up earlier in the day. So we're not going to be able to complete that item, and we're going to have to call a special council meeting to manage that when we have 4 or 5 councillors present.
Yeah, that's a very good observation. I didn't think about that again when he noted he had left. Has been a long evening. In fact, we'll have a special meeting in the near future. Should be able to hopefully not delay this much longer. The other part that I think is important is that we don't have any answers back from the Ministry of Transportation because of where that property lies. I guess we need some permission based on the zoning. So that's another component that maybe will come in that time frame, and then we would be able to have third reading and adoption at that same meeting. A possibility, not guaranteed, because I know it's summertime and I'm not sure if the Ministry of Transportation will get back to us in a timely fashion.
Okay, great. 4.5 Butler Park update.
Yes.
CAO McClure.
Yes, just an update for council and the public. Things are underway. They've been wrestling with the piles, and again thinking about sort of like your footings, but think about much larger 21-foot footings that need to go in to hold up these lights. So they finally got the design and engineers to deal with that. And then the piling cap. The piling cap is where you go down 21 feet or 7 meters is what they're saying. And as it comes up, then we need to be able to cap it so that it allows for the rods that you see holding up the light standard. So that's kind of called the cap. That design has just come in. So right now they're working with the Public Works on the approval and looking for availability of resources. There's no confirmed dates of construction yet. However, the expectation is that the foundation, the drilling, the foundation, and the electrical work will start in late September and go into November. And then the actual installation of the poles and the lighting will happen later. The idea being of having it cold enough that the field is frozen, and the concern being with having the heavy machinery putting some of these hanging these lights and whatnot, we don't want it tearing up the field. So the goal here and the plan is to have this all ready for the start of the baseball season 2023.
Any questions or comments on this?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say thank you to Colin for bringing that information forward. I've had quite a few, concerned ball players that are interested in the process of what's happening over there. So I appreciate your report. Thank you.
Yeah. Most welcome.
Okay, so item number 5.1, we're gonna have to just, well, we can't even make a motion because we're not gonna have a majority vote here for that, with Councillor Santori and Councillor Jones having to recuse themselves on that. So we're gonna have to just skip over that. And we'll move into council committee reports. Councillor Kashoni has departed the meeting. Councillor Gattafoni is not here. Councillor Santori, do you want to quickly go over the GOC meeting today and anything else you have to highlight? And you're on mute. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Long night.
Oh, and I'm getting hungry. So back to the GOC report. We had one delegation today, and that was Samantha Murphy from the Trailer District Public Library. She provided a very comprehensive report back to council on 2022 second quarter. It was great to see that the numbers are starting to increase. There's excellent participation in all of the programs. And council has thanked Samantha Murphy and the board for continued hard work and commitment in getting the most out of our library services. So hats off to Samantha and the board on the work that they're doing on the city's behalf with respect to the library. 2 public works expenditures that were approved by council. One was the capital pavement program. The contract award was for 2022 to Selkirk Paving Limited at a cost of $280,686 plus applicable taxes, fees, and charges. And just to relay the fact that was brought up at during that discussion is that the vast majority, if not all of the work, is being done in paving programs in West Trail. The second item was a purchase of a 5-ton dump truck, plow and dump truck, and that was awarded to Freightliner of Cranbrook, which staff is familiar with and has worked with before. And that expenditure was for $247,045. Grants and aid, council received the updated report year to date on grants that have been issued to different groups in the community. The next item was a donation, two $50 prize donations for Operation OWATS. And the third item was a request from Trail Tadnak Tennis Association, a request for a cash grant. And council did respond to part of their request by approving up to $5,000 for the resurfacing of the tennis courts. And just for public information, the tennis courts in Tadnak are open to the general public as well as the members. So I just thought it'd be important for the public to know that they're more than welcome to use that facility. And that concludes my report, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Councillor Santori? Seeing none, Councillor Jones, go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Mayor Payson. I actually don't have a report, any committee reports this evening. I do want to say that I have really been enjoying the music in the park. They've had excellent entertainment, and people, there's been a lot of people that have also been attending and enjoying it. It's great to see. The weather's been cooperating, and I also want to give kudos to the Trails Incredible Market. I've had the opportunity to go to those as well, and very well attended, even in this heat. And it's just great to see so many vendors participating and young entrepreneurs, you know, that are there selling their products. And it's just a great opportunity for everybody to share their, you know, their ability to, you know, make this artwork and sell it, or, you know, they've just had so many great ideas there. And it's great to see all the farmers there as well, selling their product. And yeah, it's exciting for trail. I mean, it's really busy. The markets are busy. The music in the park is busy. And it's great to see people out and about. And that's my report. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for Councillor Jones? Okay, no, I just like to say I agree. I mean, if you think back the 8 years when that market was trying to get off the ground, when I first was councillor, and it was struggle, and it was heat, and it was smoke, and it was low attendance and location, and it's been through a couple different location changes. And I mean, Gina and her group has really persevered, and our market is something to be very proud of, as is the Music in the Park feature that we have. And thanks to the Bailey Theatre Group for bringing that forward as well. Councillor Butler, you're up.
Yeah, just 2 items, Hubert. Thank you. On the 21st of July, I attended the LCC TDS monthly meeting. And then to echo your comments and Councillor Jones's comments, the Trail Incredible Market and their cooperation this year with Trail Pride Society. So shout out to Addison Oldberg and all her effort to bring that together. And I think the synergies that happened this past weekend were wonderful. And it was great to be a part of it, and also just to take it all in. And I do enjoy going to the market as well, and Music in the Park. So thank you to all those organizations within our community making those things happen.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Councillor Butler? Seeing none, Councillor Dobie, over to you.
Yeah, I too have not had any committee meetings in the last little while. I think everybody's just wanting to enjoy the summer. I do know that the attendance at the Music in the Park, when they had the beer gardens and the food vendor there, was close to 1,500 people. So that's really incredible for Trail to have that. And I do believe that in the extreme heat, that the market has been closing an hour or so earlier. It's getting very difficult. It's not just the heat, but it's also the heat that comes off the pavement, because we're all set up on pavements. But there is the spray tent there. If people are getting really hot, they can go into the spray tent. So that's about all I have to say, Mayor Payson, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any questions or comments for Councillor Dobie? Seeing none, Councillor Dobie, I just really want to publicly acknowledge your Communities in Bloom group. As you know, I'd sent an email to you because this weekend someone had expressed a concern about near the Star Grocery triangle. There was a rose bush that had grown to a height that was blocking the view of traffic when you were looking back up the hill. And I sent that communication to Councillor Dobie today. And I think it was within 2 hours, the Communities in Bloom group had got on that. They said, we know what bush it is, and we'll take care of it. And it was taken care of. So, you know, that's really amazing. And so please extend the biggest thank you, because that's a community safety piece too, but just really impressive service for our community. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Payson. And we just can't say enough about Rachel Brown, who joined us about 5 years ago. And she's one of these worker volunteers that if we ever lose her, I just fear that things aren't going to be the same for us. So yes, thank you.
You're welcome. I'll make my report quick. So I also attended the market and Pride this weekend. I mean, it was just a beautiful day. It was busy. It was full of community spirit and color and joy, and what an amazing event. And so in the next 2 weeks, I believe it's the 27th, if I have that date correct, the next market's a garlic market, which is kind of fun and unique for those who are interested in garlic. So, but for me today, I just really want to take the opportunity to wish my dear friend Rose Anderson happy birthday. She turned 100 years old on Saturday, and we were able to go down to Gyro Park and just have some cake and coffee with her. And many of you would know Rose. You know, she is just an amazing woman, and even at 100 years, she's got this high-tech red walker that we jokingly called her red Lamborghini. And she walks every day from her residence down to Gyro Park and back. And she's got a Fitbit. I don't know how many 100-year-olds are concerned about the number of steps they do, but, you know, definitely 100 years young. And we celebrate you, Rose, and thanks for being part of our community. So with council reports, does anyone have any questions for me? No. Okay, great. Thank you. So we do have 7.1 consent agenda report on invoices paid for municipal services, July 1st to 31st, 2022. And we have 7.2, the RCMP Greater District RCMP Detachment Quarterly Crime Statistics. The recommendation is that the items on the consent agenda be received for information. Do I have someone to make that motion?
So moved.
Councillor Santori and Councillor Jones, do I see your hand up to second?
Yeah.
Great, thanks very much. Any comments on this? No, seeing none, no, thank you very much. All in favor? Carried, thank you. Any new business from the floor? Councillor Doby, you have your hand up?
Yes. First of all, I would like to address Colin. Colin, I received your email just before we went into our meeting today on, you know, trying to get things on the agenda rather than just maybe bringing them up at council. But this is under a bit of a time constraint. So this is old business, but it's also new business. And this is to do with our upcoming election. At the last election, we did not have a candidate forum for council. We only had the candidate forum for the mayoral candidates. And it sounds to me, if the rumors in the community are true, that we might have quite a few people on the slate for councillors this year. And I would just like to know, in the past, other than, like I say, the last forum with the mayors, we've always gone with the Chamber of Commerce to manage the forum. Is it our intent to do that from now on if we're going to have a full forum?
That's a great question. I have no experience with, you know, with how Trail does it, but I will say that it's usually not something that the city itself sort of encourages. It's usually someone, like I said, the chamber, or there will be an eco society, or there'll be something that will, you know, kind of put the effort into to make that candidate forum a possibility. It's not something that I have seen the city, the municipality itself be involved with.
No.
Yeah, the Chamber has done it quite a bit in the past, and not only just for Trail, but I know they've also done the forum in Warfield, and I believe possibly one in Roslyn. So I just want to put that forth if we're going to contact the Chamber, or have they contacted us in this regard?
Ms. Lucchini, do you want to weigh in on that from an administration standpoint?
Yes, I can do that. I have not heard from any community organization yet in regards to hosting of a all candidates forum. Often we'll get approached by that group for something like a rental waiver of maybe a city facility like the gymnasium to host the event. I have not been approached by anyone. I do know that the executive director of the chamber is probably still away, so maybe it's something they'll throw together quickly when she returns from her extended holiday.
Thank you.
One thing that was out is that there is, and I'm just escaping me, a danger zone, is that for any new counselors, that there's a sort of a, what are you getting yourself into seminar that's being put on.
That's the one in Castlegar?
That's correct. Yeah. So just something as well for the public to be aware of, that there is a new candidate or potential candidate for council mayor, just to understand a bit of the roles and responsibilities. And it's a free event.
And they ran that last year. And I know one candidate in particular that attended thought that it was very, very worthwhile attending.
Enough so that they decided not to run.
No, they ran.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
We need
So
some humor at this point.
Okay, any other new business? Seeing none, department reports. We have the RDKB Building Department June 2022 report, and the recommendation is that this report be received for information. Do I have someone to make that motion?
So moved.
Counselor Jones and Counselor Butler seconded that motion. Any questions or comments on this? Seeing none, all in favor? Against, if any? Carried. Thank you very much. That's it for tonight. Motion for adjournment at 9:54 p.m. Counselor Butler, thank you very much. Have a good sleep, everyone. I hope everyone gets to sleep in tomorrow.